It's going. So apparently now on YouTube, I have to. Before I was able to just put everything on Restream and hit go, and it would go. Now I have to go on Studio Creator on YouTube and actually hit the live button. Like it's my thing is feeding in there, but now I have to go in there and hit live. So now it should be live streaming on YouTube.
All right, let me see. Let me go over there, take a look, and it says live.
Yes.
But all I see is the 𝗵𝗵𝗀 logo.
Right. Just give it a second. It should be. It's showing now in my studio that it's receiving the data that I'm sending.
There it is. Okay. There it is.
All right. So we're good. Can you close it so we don't have to hear it? All right. Let me switch to this camera here.
Of course. I'm going to go ahead and just post the link. Is that the link?
It's just youtube.com/𝗵𝗵𝗀. They'll pull it up.
I know. It's nice.
Oh, audio working and all this work. Everything is working. Everything is working. Let's get move on with the show, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everybody.
Coronavirus relief.
By the way,
yes.
That looks cut off to me.
What?
Is it supposed to look cut off to me?
Yeah, don't worry about me. You just worry about yourself.
All right. Well, I am worried about myself because right now, looking at the screen, I have half a face.
Don't worry about what you're seeing there. The stream looks absolutely fantastic right now. That's all that matters. I don't have time to fix that.
But more important, more importantly than my half a face, everybody, please let me know. Let me know how I sound tonight. Please let me know how I sound.
I think Brent is having a conniption over there. I don't know what's going on. He's dancing. He's doing the mariachi. I don't exactly know what he's doing over there.
He's wiggling. He's moving around. Yeah. Well, I think he was dancing a little bit to that music.
I mean, I don't understand what's going on here. I've lost completely track of what's going on with Brent. But anyway, yeah. Can everybody give us a little confirmation on how 𝗵𝗵𝗀 sounds?
Yes. How do I sound?
Sounds like a champ.
Check 1, 2, 3.
Sounds like a champ.
Sounds fine. It should sound better. It shouldn't sound fine. It should sound better. Like considering the pain and the grief that Dimitri has put me through with this microphone. You guys have no idea.
I just want to confirm one more time that I was correct about the audio all this time. And Phil sounds so much better tonight. Maybe just a very, very small bump up. Can you do that on your side, please?
What do you need? You need more
just
volume?
A little volume from your side, yes.
I could do that easily here. Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. That's a little bit of volume right there.
Just a tad more. Just to balance me out as well, too. Perfect. You sound
okay. How's that right there?
Sounds perfect. That's just beautiful. Just wonderful. Gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Nice, deep voice.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfection. Coronavirus relief show live with Phil and Dimi. Before we introduced our guest today, we have a lot to talk about with our guest, Brent Stafford. I do want to do a little housekeeping. Obviously, the show is temporarily called Live with Phil and Dimi. However, we have received your entries for the contest. Right? If you don't know the contest, if we pick the name for the show, you'll win an Inikin Proton Mini with the Ajax tank. We had a lot of wonderful submissions. I will go over some of the names that were sent in, just some names that might not have made it to the top 4. Toilet paper virus relief show, that was a pretty good one. 50 Shades of Bromance, Straight Shooters, Authentic, Bromance and Guest, We Three Kings, The True Life of Vapor, Casa Nostra Vapor Show. I don't know. I don't know about that one. Thing 1, Thing 2, and Thing 3. Let me guess who did that submission. The Smooge Show, Between Two Brothers, Bro Chat Live, The DP Show. I kind of like that. A Smoker Sideshow. I actually like that. But where are we going on this direction? Maybe it should be a little bit different. Reality Check, Mental Escape, It's Greeglish, 2/3 of Something Special. Jacking Off with Phil and Dimi. That one took me a little bit by surprise because if we're going to do a show like that, that should definitely be called Jacking Off with Phil. It shouldn't be Jacking Off with Phil and Dimi. So maybe that'll be spin-off. But nonetheless, what I have done is I have created a little poll here. I'm going to give it to Bill to put in all the chats, Facebook and on YouTube. It's going to be a live poll that's going to go on during the show. These are our top 4 picks from that category. Our top 4 picks are AIO, which stands for Air It Out, right? So that's a little combination of vape and, airing out issues.
I think at this point, that one is probably the both of our favorite ones.
Correct. I agree. The DP show, which I like that as well, too. I think that there's a lot of meaning to a DP. And 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹 is another one, and then head-to-head is another. This is the 4 choices that you have. If you're watching this, please just go ahead and live click on there, and then I'll be able to switch to my camera and kind of show you the live poll as it's going on at the same time. So you know, I think that's pretty cool. There's the poll options right there, and I can actually bring up the results live and show them to you as we're going. All right.
Yes. Hey, thank you for the super chat, Rob. A lot of comments about DJ Miami. Was it because of the link that I shared on my Facebook? Is that why? You think maybe?
I think that what you did with the videos, by the way, I mean the audio that you put on there, I think that was a great thing to do. I listened to it, and I really enjoyed it, and people appreciate it. Music gets you through a difficult time. There's no doubt about it.
I agree, and you know, I mean, there's a lot of old tracks there. I mean, they're all older CDs, so if they could bring you back to a happier time, maybe put a smile on your face, I think that's terrific. So I think we'll go ahead and share that link.
Yeah, absolutely. Give it to Bill, and he'll pass it on. By the way, little known fact: these tracks were actually made at a time where you had to hand crank your LP player. There was no electricity when Phil was DJing. I don't know if you knew that, but anyway. Let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and introduce our guest. Everybody knows him. I mean, if you vape and you don't know this guy, it's just that's just absolutely horrible. All the way from Canada, the great Mr. Brent Stafford with RegulatorWatch.com. How you doing, Brent?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Look at that. I have 3 great microphones today, and I really I have a chubby. That's what I have a chubby because it sounds so good, and on the audio podcast, it's going to sound so good. And no, thanks for joining us. I mean, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll get into vape. We'll get into the coronavirus. But how are you doing?
The big question. Phil had asked me that just a moment ago. I didn't get the full answer out, but it's like looking around and realizing at least 75% of the people that you live with want to kill you.
Yes, yes.
Because you might be a little skeptical about the coronavirus and maybe a few other things too as well.
Yes. Well, I mean, you know, I'm a sucker for a good conspiracy theory. There's no doubt about it. I live for them daily. There's just no doubt about it. And I really do want to get into that with you. In all seriousness, no, if you don't know Brent has done a fantastic job being one of the mainstream guys. I mean, Brent's been doing this for a long time, way before vaping, to be able to report on vaping news. And I can't tell you how important it is for this coverage because nobody else is covering it. Unfortunately, we don't have any mainstream media that is covering vaping from, I'm going to say, a fair and balanced eye, because not always what you cover all the time is good for vaping, right? So we have to be fair and balanced, correct, Brent?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the stuff, that I cover is specifically, it's bad news or it's things that I'm seeing that's operating inside kind of the vaping community or industry. And so, I'm going to report on that, even if it might not be popular with inside the community.
Yeah. Regulator Watch, for people that don't know, it's not only vaping, right? It covers a wide variety of topics. I mean, if you go on the website and bring it up, you're going to see there's good coverage of what's going on with COVID right now. And there's other topics that kind of fall into that, I don't want to say that controversy, but you're going to hear stuff and you're going to read about stuff that you're generally not going to see in other websites or other news coverage that's going on. I know last year you were doing this big thing about salmon and some of that stuff that was going on. I found that really, really interesting to read. But you can see here on the website, there's just tons. There's talk about heavy oil, pipelines, stuff like that. It's current stuff that's going on that should be covered, but unfortunately it's not being covered by mainstream media.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, that is what we tend to do. We actually started RegWatch with the purpose of covering energy and resources because the threat to the Canadian economy was so great, and it was coming from a real, diabolical, ideological point of view. And it's that same point of view, actually, that empowers a lot of the support for anti-vaping efforts. I wouldn't want to say public health, for instance, is, totally a back to the lander, hippie protester, on a blockade. But there's a lot of connection between the public health movement and the thinking there too as well. And you see that because if you go to, public health websites in the US, if you go to the American Public Health Association, it's just littered with climate change. You go to the fast facts at the American Public Health Association, and you'll find like 11 or 12 fact sheets on climate change and public health. And you really wonder exactly what is public health. Is it, a social movement or is it science?
Yeah. you do all this work by yourself. You know, I also have to bring this up. I mean, you shoot, you edit, you post, you social media. You're very, very slow at answering Facebook messages, which is a big pet peeve of mine, by the way. I don't know if Phil has filled you into that. But you do all this by yourself, and we want to support as much as we possibly can. I understand right now that things are tough, but there is a fundraiser going on for Regulator Watch. I'm going to toss a few bucks there myself today, just to help support, you know, what Brent is trying to do. No matter what you think of his, you know, his conspiracy theories, the fact remains that there's a lot of good information that he's been able to share with us and support the vaping community as well too. So it's on Facebook. It's on Facebook. April 2020 Red Cuts coverage support. Get on there if you can and make a donation if you believe in what he's doing. And look, we understand times are tough, Brent. There's no doubt about it that the economy has taken a huge hit, and a lot of the supporters. I mean, you base your Regulator Watch is based on ad support, and we know that even within the industry, our industry, the vaping industry, a lot of the businesses are not doing very well. It's very hard to collect advertising dollars.
Yeah, true. And well, and for us, actually, just to make sure, Demetrius, that I correct that, because we don't actually do advertising. Though for some of our supporters, we do, you know, provide them some exposure in our videos where we say, you know, supported by, but technically no advertising when it comes to what we do. And that's important because that separates us out when it comes to the legislation around smoking, right?
So it's basically like a sponsored video, kind of like we've seen reviewers doing as well, too.
Yeah, in a way it's sponsored. Yeah, they don't, except for the fact that
they sponsor the coverage.
They don't have any impact at all on the content. So we have 100% control over our content. So
yeah, absolutely. So if you can get out there and support Regulator Watch, you know, it's funny. I would want to bring this up. Vaping, what it's been through this last year. And we haven't talked about it publicly like we are talking about it now. We talked a little bit about it when you had me on, but this was back in the summer before the 𝗵𝗵𝗺 scare and all that. When all this bad news is coming out, fake news, right, manipulated and orchestrated by anti-vaping groups, it's unfortunate that we don't have a more powerful commercial voice, you know, something like the Whole Truth campaign to get out there and fight it on some level. It's really, really unfortunate. And I don't want to get specifics into names of companies. Please keep that for the book because we need to have something inside to be able to sell the book that me and Phil are writing, which, by the way, you get a really, really nice honorable mention through this book in that whole process.
Appreciate that.
But I honestly want to ask you, do you believe that we could at least, I mean, it's very hard to go up against Bloomberg money. I get that. But do you believe that if we had something in place a couple of years ago, meaning a supported campaign for tobacco-free kids, but in the vape world, meaning the Whole Truth campaign, that would be able to at least combat a little bit of this, that vaping would be in a better position right now, as of April 2020?
Oh, I don't doubt that for a second. I mean, our Whole Truth program was set to go at 150 million impressions on cable television in the U.S., and the program got killed right at the last minute. We had to call the media buying companies, and you know this, in New York, and cancel the media buy. And so those ads would have been running in February, in March of 2019. So when COVID had hit, we would have already been in market for 6 months telling Americans about the Whole Truth and them seeing it on TV, on cable television. So there's no doubt in my mind that we would have been able to at least already be in market with a message and some credibility, fighting already in the media fight. And then when COVID hit, we could have changed our creative, bought more ads and started the fight. We would have been there. Sorry, not COVID, 𝗵𝗵𝗺. We would have been there when 𝗵𝗵𝗺 hit, and we would have been able to at least, be able to mitigate some of it for sure.
Yeah, Phil is something that you tell me all the time. You're like, man, we're getting blasted on media, and we don't have a voice to get out there. I mean, I don't understand if people really grasp that to be on mainstream media, you have to pay.
Yeah. And it's too bad because, I mean, I saw the Whole Truth campaign. I know the amount of effort that was put into that campaign. I saw all the slides. I mean, you guys were ready to go. You guys had it. You were done. You were ready to go. It was just a matter of getting it funded. And looking back right now, and I hope those people that are going to be in the book realize that they really messed up by not funding it and not pushing it forward. really messed up. Bad.
I tend to agree. I think that if you look at the overall scope of what's going on right now, it's a one-sided thing. I mean, even these 𝗶𝗵𝗶𝗹, it came out a couple weeks ago that Bloomberg was paying him $250 for every tweet that went out, you know, from these wino moms that are going out there saying that vaping is bad and the kids and, you know, and all that. And not it's, you know, it's so frustrating to me, Brent. I get so pissed that, I mean, we're literally, as volunteers, trying to effectively make a change in public policy that's going to save millions and millions of Americans, and our industry does not grasp it. It's the immaturity of this industry is going to be its downfall.
No comment.
Well, that's not fun. It's fun when you comment.
Well, Brent, that is very much unlike you, Brent.
Well, I can't speak to any particular maturity level. And I still, I mean, you know, I do maintain a separation from the industry. I'm not, you know, I mean, while I'm all in on vaping and have been now for 4 years, I still try to maintain some separation. So because, you know, I'm not from the industry and I don't work in it, I don't know. But I can tell you that there is a reluctance to fight. There's a reluctance to fight the enemy and an ease in which to attack their brother. Right.
Understood. Understood. I think if you look at the concept of, listen, can we get some good news about vaping, and in turn, you might not see a direct money return on your investment, but once that perspective changes from your average American that believes vaping now is bad to good, business automatically will grow. The industry will become healthy. More money will be made. It's an indirect investment that can be very, very fruitful. And it's just, I don't understand why people cannot see that when everybody else does it. Everything consumer-wise in America has some kind of a group behind it that supports it in order for it to go. Pharmaceutical companies is the prime example. GlaxoSmithKline does not go out there and advertise, or Johnson & Johnson. They don't advertise. They pay these nonprofit groups to go after the issues that they're trying to solve with their pharmaceutical drugs.
Right.
And that's exactly what we should be doing. Go ahead.
Let me say that Johnson & Johnson, great example, because they're so big that they can hire some, you know, a firm or firms and spend enough money to actually move the needle through PR and through whatever they want to do on the media side. They can do that, right? And their interest alone is what's being served. But when it comes to the vaping industry, obviously, and this is just a no-brainer, I think for everybody knows this, is that it's really difficult to aggregate the dollars that you would need to fight this effort in a manner in which it needs to be fought. Sure. And it's so humongous, the amount of bad PR and the forces that are allied against vaping, that literally when you look at it and go, I mean, this is $100 million media campaign over 3 years, you know, to really kind of make an effort. And there's no one single, you know, group that's got that. And the last thing on that is that you've got the problem is that who does a group represent, right? And so it makes it harder to get that money all together when if it's just the consumers, or is it the small retailers, or is it Juul or whatever. And so the industry is effectively carved up enough that it makes it really hard to pool resources, just because of the end, whose interest then would those dollars be spent on?
Yeah, it makes absolute sense to me. It really does. I truly believe, though, that even if we did concentrate on effort and spend a couple $1 million to be able to get in mainstream media, if we had the right characters. I mean, listen, we live in a day and age where every person has seen a Tiger King meme, okay? Like, everybody in the world knows about Joe Exotic today. Mm-hmm. Okay? What probably one of the worst documentaries. It's kind of like the making of a murder. I'm not saying it's good or bad. You can make your own decision. I don't want to influence you on that. But the fact remains that you have these characters in place that now have become a household name. And we easily have characters within this industry that could actually do that as well, too. So even if we did have a smaller piece of the pie versus Bloomberg money, for example, if we had the right characters in place to be able to create controversy and the stuff that media really thrives for, and that is those characters that can bring that passion and drama and clickbait to their stories where it's going to get people to click on there, I do effectively think that we would at least be in a better place today than we are versus doing absolutely nothing, which we've done all this time. All right, the topic today. The topic today is Of course, living with the coronavirus scare that's going on. What has been your greatest challenge during the lockdown? You can actually call us if you want to participate. The telephone line will be on the screen constantly, 215-383-5752. If you want to call in and tell us what your greatest challenge, you can tweet me at Vaping Greek, or you can put it inside the chat, and my wonderful friend Bill Tarling will pass it on to me to be able to get it on there. So let me start first with you, Brent. What has been the biggest challenge for you during this crisis?
That's such a good question. I honestly, I think the mental understanding that it's here and it's everything I thought it would be, and it's by the people I thought that was going to do it. This is a public health takeover of power. I mean, it's totalitarian. There's only one organization in any country that can do this, and that's public health. And together worldwide, they've shut down the entire Western economy. And they're not telling us when they're going to open it back up again. They're lying about the science. It's the CDC. It's the exact same organization that I spent 7 months covering, who were lying about the vaping-related lung illness, completely lying. So how am I supposed to, as a journalist, take them seriously? And I don't know how any vapor does either. And understanding and coming to grips with that, and it has been the hardest part.
So I mean, to make sure that I get this correctly. So I mean, the fact that there's something else going on along with this coronavirus is probably your biggest challenge. And we'll get into the details of what you think and what you think. But this backstory of what exactly is the true meaning and why this is happening has probably been your biggest challenge. All right, Phil, let me get to you. What has been your biggest challenge, aside from a hairdresser, which I think is the most non-essential, essential work that I'm missing during the coronavirus?
I actually did do a number 6 on my entire head.
Did you?
This is good up here, but it's not tight enough here.
Yeah.
I think my biggest challenge is just talking to my parents every day and making sure that they're doing everything that they need to do to keep safe and to stay away from this. But at the same time, I have a lot of the same issues and problems that Brent has right now. What is happening to our economy, and I know I'm going to say things that are going to piss people off, and that's
okay. It's live with Phil and Dimi. It's uncensored, no problem.
I feel like what is happening to our economy, what is happening to our society, doesn't match the threat, right? And you know, when we talk about bans, when we talk about flavor bans and vaping bans, one of the things that I've always said was, we want strategic strikes, not carpet bombing, right? Because when you ban something, you ban it from the people that need it too. You ban it from adults. You ban it from people like me and my wife and my mom, your wife, people that actually use this product to not smoke anymore. And if it's because they want fucking peach, then they should have fucking peach.
Yeah.
Right? So we need surgical strikes to find out how teens are getting it, how the youth is getting it, and we need to stop those channels. Carpet bombing and banning for everybody is not the answer. It's not the solution. So I kind of look at COVID a little bit similar in that, why didn't we focus on who is most at risk? Why didn't we focus on, you know, the adults, the elderly, the people with previous conditions? I mean, to shut down society and to shut down the economy in the way it's been done, that's my biggest challenge. Is I fear what's going to be left after all this is over.
I agree. I agree. I'm on kind of like the same page as you feel. My biggest concern is like, why were we not prepared for this? Okay. So the decisions that are being made today seem to be changing by the minute in some cases. Right. And I can bring, as in a vapor and being in this fight for, almost 10 years now, I can tell you that I've seen public health and the mistakes that they've made. But I'm seeing mistakes being made now. I mean, we can start with the masks from 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹 into CDC and the WHO and the way that the government handled it and the way that the government dismissed it. But the decisions that we're making today, what I fear are they're not prepared, and what the actual result coming out of this will be based on these knee-jerk reactions as we're seeing right now the government partake. That to me has been the biggest challenge. Is why were we not prepared for this? And Brent, I'm going to pose that question to you. Why was, I mean, we can keep it U.S. based if you want it, but I mean, Canada, you're facing pretty much the same thing. Why were we not prepared for this?
Well, I mean, our focus, obviously, when it comes to COVID, really is the U.S. because it's what drives everything in the world. The CDC runs the WHO pretty much. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the global pandemic, that's all driven out of CDC. There's a whole separate organization within the WHO that's really actually one that's driving everything. And, it's fully funded by the U.S. and it's been in operation since 2014. So, that being said, for me, it's the CDC. On February 25th, and some of you may find this an interesting coincidence or not, and it's not a conspiracy. It's going to go to my point in terms of, what happened is that the entire CDC was spun up on a lie, which was vaping-related lung illness. And from August right through to February 25th, which is they fought this media war, which wasn't a war, it was just a propaganda campaign, where every single day the mainstream media was pushing out another, dramatic stat about the number of new cases of vaping-related lung illness. It was every day, and then the deaths. They didn't even need to change their chyrons at ABC or CBS. They just, moved straight into COVID. Yeah. Really, amazingly, they had the entire mainstream media primed and in communication of an epidemic and outbreak, using all that language and spinning up the hysteria. And so they were very hysterical. So I think there's a state of mind that I think that's there, that was just soaked in a fake hysteria, in a fake epidemic that rolled right into this.
I mean, there's just no argument there, right, Phil?
Yeah, you know what amazes me is that the vaping illness and COVID-19 were both called an epidemic.
Yeah.
So what's a real epidemic? If they use the word epidemic again, will we believe them? I mean, how can you use the vaping illness and teens vaping? How can you use the word epidemic and then today use the same word with COVID-19? It's preposterous. It's ridiculous.
To be fair, today Donald Trump announced that he's going to look into the funding of the WHO, which, again, I'm not taking, unless I see actions, I don't take words. I mean, I take them for what they are. But he did say today that he would be looking into why the WHO missed the ball on this, and if WHO is who the Surgeon General and our government here is listening to as they're making these decisions, then obviously we should be looking into how this money is being spent, and it's definitely not money well spent for the U.S. government. What I found really interesting, I'm gonna bring this up, so we'll get into some conspiracy theories. I was watching one of your interviews here. This is, and I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. This is streamed on March 15th, Brent. But I'm gonna play just a little bit of it, and I will give you a chance to kind of dive into it and tell me if anything has changed from March 15th to what is now April the 7th.
Progressivism. And so here we're in this spot right now where public health, together in its cabal, it is. I've got my tin hat is on my head right now. But the fact of the matter is that they're bringing down capitalism with this hysteria, are they not?
Well, the economy is being brought to a halt, obviously. I don't think, I'm sure this is going to become a little bit of a debate here, but I don't think that's, now there's definitely lots of evidence of these idiots, for lack of a better term, kind of cheering on what's been happening. But I don't think that doesn't mean, and I would never for a second suggest that this is somehow a manufactured crisis or anything like that. I think 350 people who are dead today in Italy from the virus are actually dead today from the virus. So I think that it's real. I think that it's really bad, and of course it has huge economic consequences that are rippling throughout the global economy, and will probably continue to ripple. Hopefully for not the next year, but we'll have to see.
Well, so my question to you, and this is a great debate to have. I was excited actually to hear that your position on this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is basically you don't think this is overblown.
No, I don't think it's overblown at all.
So I'm going to go back to that really quick, Brent. Do you think that this whole situation is overblown? I mean,
100%.
And nothing has changed since the date of March 15th.
Oh, no. And anybody who feels this kind of a lull, that's happening because a little bit of air is being let out, they've had their boot on our necks individually, as families, as businesses, as cultures, as nations. They've had a boot on our neck. They're lifting it up a little bit right now just to give us a little bit of air.
How are they lifting it up, Brent?
Well, one of it is because so much attention has been placed onto this week, and President Trump and the CDC and the folks back March 27th on that Sunday when they came out and really broke a lot of people's hearts and hope that this thing was going to run to April 30th and not end at Easter. And the president seemed to be reacting to all these new numbers, and since then has maintained the storyline, which is true. That it was 100,000 to 240,000 people in the United States were going to die from this illness. The number for this week was supposed to be already close to 90,000, and it's only around 31,000. So a really big, drastic difference in the forecast from just 2 weeks ago for this week. And so what's happened is the curve seems to be flattened in New York. They're having now less cases. It's falling down. It's flattening. It's flattened here in British Columbia. It's flattened in a lot of other places. It's even flattening in California. Washington State looks like it's past it. So, what's happened here is that I believe is that President Trump realized that there was no way he was going to win with public health, not in this environment. Public health is running most of the Western world right now at the moment. They're making the decisions. And I think that Trump said, you know what, if you can pick a date, if you don't want April 12th, they somehow settled on the 30th. It was clear the president didn't order that. Otherwise, public health wouldn't have been on stage with him and talking about the deadline. And so now this is supposed to be the really bad week, and it's not happening. And as this week does not deliver on the carnage that has been promised, people will start waking up. And for those that were feeling a little bit pressed down, they're going to start talking.
Don't you feel that some of that has to do with, there's definitely a lack of testing going on. There's no doubt about it. And we have prime examples. Just last week, I was talking to Phil about this. I was like, your parents might have, come into contact with this. They need to be tested. And what happened, Phil? You tried, right?
Yeah. So my parents did come in contact with somebody who has COVID. They did things the right way. They had gloves. They didn't know this person had COVID. But I was curious about getting them a test, right? There's no way to get them a test with the drive-throughs, with anything, unless they're showing symptoms. They'll turn you around. So it's very interesting to me that it appears that people in the government, people in media, people in the movies, on TV, sports, they seem to be able to get tests without any problem, but my parents can't. I see that as a problem.
Brent, don't you agree that the numbers can be understated simply because and maybe the government wants to keep this a little bit, under control as far as what the actual number is going to be. And, when somebody dies, it's very, very hard at that point to determine the cause of death as well, too. The fact that, in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of a lot of professionals that I've talked to, at least in Europe, random sampling should be happening right now. We probably one of the best things that could happen is random sampling. We use it in all other areas of our life except, one of the most critical ones, and nobody's doing random sampling that could really give us the numbers, but nobody's doing that.
Right, and that should say absolutely everything when it comes to this topic. And then the whole COVID, house of cards, if you will, really does depend on these numbers. And when they absolutely don't want to have the number that they need, the number that could kill them, right? The number that could wipe away any justification for the action that they did is the number of how many people have been infected. So that's why they're not doing random testing. It's clear they don't want to know the number. For one, CDC didn't have enough tests or the right tests available. When they finally made the tests after the scare was already happening, then they send them out in the millions, and then they don't work. And then, of course, the whole regulatory system was set up where CDC and FDA owned the whole make a new test business. And that's only recent that they took that power and centralized that power. And so that slowed down the tests. And then now, as the tests are even happening, the government, CDC, refuses to get random testing. You could go out to 50 states, just to the state capitals, a small number of people, gather random, and then come back with the number. And the problem is that in this particular case, unlike any other disease that we've ever faced in this manner, the more people who have it, the better the news. Yeah. And it's as simple as that. And that's why they don't want it. And that's why this whole thing at bottom is a hysteria and should go down as the greatest progressive hysteria ever perpetrated on the planet.
And I think, Brett, what you're saying there is if we had more testing, if we had random testing, if everybody who got a cold and got over it in a couple of days, if we knew that they had COVID, the mortality rate would drop substantially.
Well, yeah, if this is all about justification now, that's all that this is about. See, they saw an opportunity to take power, which they did. They used the precautionary principle to do it. They had no data. There was no science to support it. But it was just the appearance of risk, and they pulled the trigger and shut down the Western world, right? Yeah. So that's as simple as that. They've used all of these same things, or what's operating with vaping too, by the way. So that's why this is connected completely. Yeah. So,
Brent, one of the things that I've been saying is with all of the cancellations and all of the closings that are happening, right? I truly feel the one thing that has not been canceled or closed is the one thing that has the potential to heal this country on so many different levels, and that is mainstream media and the press in its current form, right? How much do you think mainstream media influences public health and vice versa?
Well, I mean, if you start considering that public health operates off of an ideology. Now, I'm not talking about all public health. Obviously, public health is huge, but that's what's interesting about public health. Its tentacles reach into every aspect of society, work, business, and so forth, school, everywhere. And so when that has a philosophy, an ideology, a way of seeing the world, what happens is top down. From public health isn't bottom up, it's top down. And so, it gets down everywhere. So it's clear to me that there really isn't much separation between public health and the mainstream media, considering that public health is a progressive movement. When you study the history of public health, this is their history. Public health is progressive. And so as soon as you understand that, then all of the other arms of progressivism that are operating, hence the mainstream media, they're really just part of the same party. Some people will joke and call it the Democratic Party, but it's really the progressive party that really has got the stranglehold on public health in the media and also in business and a few other places.
And we as vapors should be able to see that clearly. I mean, if you've done any kind of research in the last few years of what's happening through that same exact channel when it comes to harm reduction via vaping for tobacco cigarette smoke, right? Comment from one of the audience, Beth Cairns, says, Beth Sabbath says, my daughter, this is to Phil, my daughter is working on the COVID floor in an Atlantic County hospital. She couldn't even get a test. She had every symptom but fever, and she was refused the test. The way that we're seeing other countries, Brent, handle this, okay? I mean, Greece was the same lockdown. We saw this in Italy and other countries as well, too. But what we've seen in some European countries, more so in some than others, that they handle it a little bit different as far as the testing is concerned. And I think this is one of the reasons why we're seeing more advancement in that sector than what we've seen here in the United States. What is the situation in Canada? Are you getting the same type of response when it comes to testing?
Yes. I mean, yeah. You know, I don't know if testing has been, at least in the media that I consume in Canada, has been as big as, say, other issues. Maybe. In Canada, though, I think we're a little past that, to the extent that there's been a big push to get the modeling out. And so Premier Ford in Ontario, our biggest province, they did get their modeling out and did make that transparent, which was really important. I think BC has done some of it. And then the big story, of course, is that the feds, unless they've done it today, our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, is refusing to be transparent with the modeling. So what are the models that they used to shut down the country? That's the question. That's the question everybody should be asking.
Yeah.
I mean, models in the end are absolute evil for us.
I agree.
This is about population statistics. And that's what's used for vaping, is population statistics through epidemiology. And here we have population level statistics too, as well, being used to drive all of this. And I mean, I certainly know that the science is in epidemiology is broken, because we cover it every day. I mean, we have scientists on our show and some big public health people. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for public health, and there's certainly a huge chunk of them that are pushing back and fighting on the issue when it comes to vaping. And I think there's a lot of public health people that are probably concerned about what's been going on here too, because if you know how science is supposed to work, this is not the way you use science. You don't use science to create this much disaster, this much, you know, I mean, the pain that this is going to cause in the aftermath is, I believe, going to be unbelievable.
Do you believe that your average person is starting to pick up on this now? I mean, they might have got it with vaping because maybe they didn't vape, maybe they didn't smoke, maybe they didn't care, right? But this is different because this affects everybody. It doesn't care if you vape, if you smoke, if you're white, if you're black. Yeah, it is a little bit, you know, for older people, they say, but that's just any infectious disease will be for older people will be more deadly than younger people. But what I noticed this week on Twitter, you know, and you know, God bless, I just want to put this out there really quick. People like Kevin Crowley, and we have a group of these Twitter warriors. We worked really hard this past week to expose 𝗷𝗵𝗶𝗹. I mean, really, and I think that we were very, very successful. We were able, what we did is we penetrated these non-vaping related tweets about the Surgeon General, and we started posting screenshots of what he was saying. And then all of a sudden, people are picking it up. Like, people that don't vape are retweeting my tweets, and next thing I know, I have like a 2,000 retweet on a thread of the CDC, which was absolutely fantastic. Then what we start seeing Soledad O'Brien call out Jerome. We saw 𝗂𝗵𝗶𝗹, which is, you know, a big prominent black comedian that does the show on CNN. Chuck Woolery called out Jerome Adams. I almost had a Woody that day. It was absolutely fantastic. We've seen doctors criticize Jerome. Now we're seeing your average public saying, hold on a second. You were telling us a month ago that you're worried about a reclining seat on the plane, but not about COVID. You were making poems, roses are red, violets are blue. I'm not worried about COVID, but I'm worried about flu. He just said 2 days ago that we're going to see Pearl Harbor 9/11. He compared this to Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Just a few, like Asians are not getting enough heat right now. By the way, did you know this? I know I'm jumping. I have ADD, but do you know that? Phil, Steve Nguyen, you know Steve out in California from Vapor Bombs. He went into a market this past week and got attacked because he was Asian. And we have the Surgeon General comparing Pearl Harbor for crying. Like, do you want people to be more fucking pissed at Asians at this point? And like, we, of course, from the vaping industry, we know this tactic, right? But now, do you think? I guess back to my question. Do you think that the average person is picking up on it? Are we going to see them demand more accountability?
If that question is for me, I mean,
Yes.
that's the hope. That's the hope that if any good comes out of this, it's that literally they went too far.
Yeah.
But we can't, you know, relax on that, because we're talking about steps here that just clearly, if you look at any time through history, look at the 20th century history. And there are examples of the escalation of totalitarian power. It doesn't take long, and it usually takes most of the people that live in the countries to go along with it, because it keeps them safe, or it keeps others out, or whatever sunshiny thing that it is. But we have a large portion of our populace right now that we'll get through this together. We'll get through this together. We're going to get through it together. I've got to kill you.
Unity.
Yeah. And they're the ones goose stepping straight to a very, very dark future. And they're doing it thinking that they're virtuous. Now, I'll tell you right now, this isn't going to take long. It's already happened. But once people start getting back together, we're going to see, everyone that's on this call will see this. But as people start mixing again at business and so forth, you'll find bumping into acquaintances that you know in the hallway and so forth. And obviously the topic of what just happened will come up. Trust me, they're searching to see if you're a virus denier. Any ounce of skepticism, and they're going to pull that out of you, and they're branding you, because that's what they did with Trump. Yeah. They carved up the entire society and went, are you pro or against? They made family, pitted against family, friends against friends. They made everybody in the progressive left have to pick a side, and those in the middle, they got, they jumped to save their skin, right? Yeah. And that's going to happen again. And it's going to be over this issue, and it's life and death for them. They're mentally ill. Yeah,
it's really interesting. Is it fair if I agree with you 75% of the time, and we're still friends? I think that's fair. Yeah. That's fair, Brent. Right? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. 75% is really good. Yeah. I could get 75% from everybody in the industry. Would be in a much better place. Let me just pull up a couple.
I think Dimitri and I are only 65%. By the way.
Yeah, that's true. Well, on some things, people started my job is supposedly going to start taking employee temperatures to get allowed in the factory. I work in large food processing plant. Is this a common thing now for workers? I don't know how Phil would know, but maybe you know, Brent.
I've heard that. Yeah. Like they're going to do the temperature tests and stuff like that. That is going on that, in some workplaces. And yeah, that is expected to continue. One of the worrying things is that out of the CDC and like maybe some jackasses like our Surgeon General and so forth, over the last couple of weeks, they've been talking about when they finally let people back to work, which just kills me. That in and enough should tell you we need pitchforks and fire, lots of fire when they finally let us go back to work. And so when they finally do that, they're going to maybe only let the people that have already had COVID go back to work because they'll be safe. So everybody is like locked up so they don't get COVID. And then when they let us back to work, they're going to prioritize those that have had it.
I'm going to be selling COVID on the internet. It's going to be lit, fam. I'm going to put it in a child cartoon bottle and just sell the hell out of that. But, it's interesting, Phil. China has been doing this forever, though, Phil. I mean, how many times? We've gone to China 14, 15 times since 2014. Sure. And they were checking our temperature going, right?
Always. Well, there's that story that I always tell about you when you had that fever and we were coming across mainland China into Hong Kong, and I made you sit underneath the air conditioning vent so that your forehead was nice and cold so that when they shot you with the temperature gauge, you could get through.
Well, what I'm saying is that this is another, like it's going to turn into, I think what Brent is getting at, and that might be a little bit, to me, that might be a little bit far-fetched. I don't know if I can see it. I'm not an unreasonable person, Brent. You know that. I'm very, very fair. But, we're turning into communism. It's like exactly what we're seeing, right?
Yeah.
Is that where we're going with this?
Well, look, just let me just say that human beings here in the West have lost their understanding of the dangers of communism. We lost the sense of what it looks like and what it sounds like and who the people are, their actions. So now we're not recognizing it. It looks like woke, social justice, woke, totalitarian public health ish. No, all together, it's just straight up communism. Yeah, that's what it is.
Really, really interesting. Are infants at risk? I think everybody's at risk. Absolutely. If you're a human being and you breathe, you're at risk for this, and how your body's going to deal with it. This is another thing. We just don't know. I think anybody that claims to know at this point, there might be some, specialists, doctors that microbiologists, epidemiologists that can really get into this to the more specifics. But I think as a citizen of the United States, legal citizen of the United States, before I go to a supermarket and get my ass kicked, as a legal, I feel unsafe, not from the virus itself. I feel unsafe from the people that are leading us. And what really boils my blood, Phil, and I know you feel exactly the same way, is the fact that people are politicizing now this virus. And this political game that's being played with my health and my kids' health and my family and my friends is really, really pissing me off.
It's that I think that's one of the things that's driving me crazy the most. That and media is really driving me crazy. But and I've said this, Democrats and Republicans should be on stage together, holding hands, singing "Kumbaya." We're gonna get through this. We got it under control. Don't worry about it. Okay, just follow these guidelines that we're putting out, and we'll get through it. And then keep your bullshit bickering and not getting along away behind closed doors at this point. But still, even with this going on, you got to have parties fighting each other and throwing each other under the bus and blaming, and it's this person's fault and it's that person's fault. Who gives a fuck at this point? Yeah. Who cares at this point? Right. Let's just get through this together. I know Brent doesn't like to hear that, but together.
Unity. Come on, all together. Kumbaya, baby. Let's go ahead. Give us good.
But I mean, seriously, the politicizing of this is just so out of control.
Brent, you agree?
Well, I mean, I do agree, but it's not an equal sides issue. Look, I think the oldest form of politics is disease politics. So the fear of the virus and the bacteria, so forth, is intricately intertwined with racism.
Yes, absolutely.
Xenophobia, I mean, all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, so if you say, well, race is political, it's deeply rooted in the politics of disease. So we saw one side here absolutely lurch for power, which they took immediately. They did it by lying or exaggerating, and with no concern. And their public health, and public health is supposed to be concerned for the overall health. I was up on CDC's website yesterday researching for a show we're going to be doing soon, where we're looking at public health's dedication to all of the other aspects in society, right, that must be operating well for people to have good public health. And that's everything from housing to school to jobs to, substance use issues, everything. They are involved with managing all of that. But yet, when it came to this little bug, they've just said, well, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
This is the more important thing. And so it's a nightmare. And if we can't allow public health to get away, and I'm talking about CDC here, really.
Absolutely.
We can't allow them to get away with this.
Absolutely. It makes you wonder what the purpose of these organizations are. Why are they even there? The Surgeon General tweeted out, and this is the beauty, nothing goes away from the internet. This is the beauty. This is how dumb these people are. Like, this guy does not deserve that position. I guarantee you that Phil Busardo would make a better U.S. Surgeon General. My point is, why do we need a U.S. Surgeon General? If he tweets out that I make my policy and my decisions based on the information that I get from CDC and the WHO. So why are you in this position if you're just going to relay whatever the WHO and the CDC? Well, we just subscribe to CDC and the WHO. We don't need the U.S. Surgeon General position. To me, what it appears like, this is another peon to be able to push the agenda, whatever that agenda might be, whether it's vaping, COVID, or whatever else, flavor of the week we have. These are positions that are put into place. They sound like, the U.S. Surgeon General. It sounds like it's a majestic, it's like, this is the general, right, saying, oh, yeah, you got to do this because I'm telling you to do this. And I, for one, am more hesitant to listen to, forget CDC, anything that comes out of my government right now, to trust them at least for the safety of I have to make my own decisions based on my own research.
Is it just me, or does the Surgeon General, every time he gets up and talks, just seem like an outclassed child?
Absolutely. He's just an
everybody else is talking.
He's just an ass kisser. That's all he is.
Right. So the position of Surgeon General has been downgraded as CDC's power grew. There, the stature of Surgeon General fell. I mean, in the 80s with C. Everett Koop,
right?
There was some established authority there. Now they're not going to. They're the left, right? Progressive left. So they're going to never cede a point of authority. So there's a point of authority that is the Surgeon General. Better to corrupt it, which they've done, and clearly it was not 100% a merit process that put our current Surgeon General there. I'm just trying to be careful with what I say there.
I understand.
But there's a whole bunch of boxes that checks off for the intersectional world. So that's great. So they fill it. So they don't want to cede the authority of that position. They want to control that, and they obviously do. He takes everything from the WHO and the CDC. So
I'm just so upset with him from the fact of, here's a guy that is an anesthesiologist, right? Definitely not qualified for this. This is a guy that, based on his religious beliefs in Indiana, did not want to do a needle exchange program at the highest peak of an AIDS epidemic in the state, right? Along with Vice President Pence, by the way. People should go back and do some research. Don't put tinfoil hats on your head. Just go back there and do some research, okay? This is absolutely true. In the biggest crisis of AIDS in Indiana, both VP Pence and Jerome Adams, because of their religious beliefs, did not support, and eventually they had to back off. But how many deaths could have been prevented if they had done that? Because as soon as they did that, then the numbers started declining. This is a guy that is an anesthesiologist, definitely not qualified for that. He was definitely put in that position by Czar and by Pence because they're buddies. Wears his uniform, again, like he's, fought in Iraq or whatever, takes all these selfies. He's on every news channel, obviously applying for the next pharma job he's going to get once he's fired or he resigns, because one of the two will happen. I guarantee you. That's the Dimitri promise for 2020. Jerome Adams is going to be fired or resign. I will do this is my only goal. I don't have nothing else to do. I'm locked up at home. My only goal is to get rid of Jerome Adams.
If Jerome gets fired, you're going to be able to die a happy man, won't you?
Dude, I'm going to have a party. I'm going to have a virtual party on Twitter. Absolutely. I'm going to pop champagnes open. And whoever comes along is probably going to be some other jerk, and we'll go after him at that. But Jerome has actually caused death in this country. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt. From the vaping to the COVID, he has caused death. No doubt about it. So, all right, let's get into a few questions that have come in here. And boy, we went through this last week as well too, but how can you not? Question for Brent. This is coming from PSS. What are your thoughts about Trump wanting to keep supplies for themselves and wanting to cut off the rest of the world, especially since CDN health professionals are crossing the border to assist with the United States?
Sorry, the last part there. What health officials were crossing the border?
CDN, Canadian health professionals, are crossing the border to assist the U.S.
Right. So one thing has absolutely nothing to do with the other.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the second part is. Is it good or bad that Canadians are going to the U.S.? Regardless, it has nothing to do with whether or not the U.S. should be sending us supplies. Now, the U.S. is a sovereign nation. And I would hope that if Canada had any manufacturing capacity at all for life-saving equipment, that we would keep that first for Canadians before we sent it off to, say, an enemy. Now, I mean, neighbors and allies is a different thing. And the U.S. has been helping its allies. And I know that, Canada's doing the same. I don't know. Canada's sent stuff to China. So that's the problem here. Our country's feeding China supplies.
That is pretty interesting. But, boy, I got to get to this question. So does Brent, this is from Robbie Nix. So does Brent, by the way, the telephone lines are open, 215-383-5752. Trust me, if you're locked up at home, we're paying for these phone lines. The best thing to do is pick up the phone and call and just let it out. Tell us what your biggest challenge is. Tell us how you're feeling. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be a keyboard warrior. Pick up the phone and chat with us. All right, Robbie Nix. So does Brent have any thoughts if the 5G thing having any issues with people's health by any chance because of the radio waves from it? I mean, I had to get to this, Brent. I had to get to this question.
Yeah, that's tough. It's tough. That, every decade or so or whatever, there's always these issues when it comes to the radio waves. Sure. And so I don't know. Yeah. I mean, my early career in journalism, like in mainstream stuff, I mean, I remember early 90s doing stories on the new cell towers going up, and this is just for the original cell service. So, microwave does have an issue if you're in the way of a microwave of microwave stuff. So like, we used to have these mobile microwave dishes that would go on top of our news van, and I'd, shoot a hockey game or something before driving, 50 minutes back to the main, Kelowna, where our broadcast facility was. I'd stop the truck, I'd put the tripod on top of the roof, I'd toss up the microwave dish, and I'd shoot line of sight to the microwave and feed off my footage. And we were drilled home to don't stand in front of it because you'll never have kids. Yeah. So, there are obviously some issues when it comes to these kinds of things. but with everything going on, you know, I'm not going to just completely discount the fact that maybe something might be happening with regard to that. Maybe.
You know, I partially agree. Like, I will not discount it unless it's really far-fetched, like, you know, lasagna from Italy caused the... I mean, if I get into something like that, yeah, I'm not going to get... It's going to get really, really far-fetched. In this particular thing in the 5G, I'm not on board on it, just simply from data that I've done some research on it. I'm not dismissing anything 100%. I'm going to put it out there. But I'm going to put the percentage at very, very, very low on this particular conspiracy, if you want to call it, or whatever it is. Plus, you know... How widespread is 5G right now in America? It's not that widespread. I mean, there's that technology is fairly new, but it's definitely not full coverage of the United States as we're seeing now with the spread of the virus.
It's interesting about the 5G. Let's say who benefits from putting those stories out, you know, the conspiracy theory, you know, saying 5G is involved.
Mm-hmm.
Who would benefit from that? That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe this is, you know, maybe some counter propaganda designed to create some fear in the public about 5G.
Yeah.
And that actually would hurt China generally because they're the ones, right?
Yeah, with the new technology, yes.
Yeah, so could this be a somehow a sleight of hand kind of smack here that, you know, maybe it's
Boy, you're opening up a door there, Brent. I
mean, it's just happening, right? It's happening.
I'm not dismissing it. 100%, I'm not dismissing it, okay? Now, you know, would I publicly go out there and go and support a theory like that? No, absolutely not. But I'm not dismissing it. Okay, I just want to put that out there. By the way, here's another comment. Most guys can't find the G spot, let alone a 5G spot. That's absolutely true. It's good. So a question from Janine, who appoints the Surgeon General? In this case, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, you probably know this in more detail than me, but he is appointed by the president. In this particular case with Surgeon General, he was brought on board because of Secretary Azar. And I'm thinking that came from Vice President Pence. So this is how it goes. They handpick a guy, then they go to the president and they say, well, we have, you know, a list of this, but from this list, it's basically like you see on Homeland or House of Cards. From this list, we suggest this guy. And then the president appoints him, and then he has to go through a Senate hearing, which is generally just, you know, dog and pony show. He gets out there and answers a few questions, and then he's put into that position. Correct, Brent? Did I say that right?
Yeah, you know, I'm just checking on that. That sounds like the right process for sure. I mean, there's no way like this is like a cabinet type pick where, you know, Trump and his small team of people have plucked out somebody from business world and thrown him into a job that they really want him. This is going to be public health serving him up. Yeah. Right. Yes. And then just he getting confirmed.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. This is one of the reasons why I love Kevin Crowley on Twitter. Like today, he went all out. Like he actually brought up when he was in the Senate hearing with, you know, before he got appointed to the position, he had said, I promise the American people that I'm committed to letting the science lead me, which is absolutely false. There's absolutely false. And all the decisions and the public comments that he has made, science was never the deterrent factor. For Jerome Adams, the best thing that he could do is get out there and support Trump or whatever Trump is saying, or whatever the agenda that they're trying to pass. And none of the statements, when he talks about evaluating, when he talks about vaping could be, if you're vaping or you're smoking, you could be more prone to COVID, is the most ridiculous thing. In fact, I have talked to scientists in Europe that have told me that actually nicotine might be helping you not to catch COVID. I mean, in a country, if we take the numbers from China to be correct, I don't know. In a country of China where a baby literally lights a cigarette when it's born, like everybody smokes, right? Under 20% of the patients were smokers, which to me is mind-blowing. And there's absolutely no data to back up that if you smoke or vape or you're more prone to get coronavirus. In fact, just the opposite with the 14 studies that we've seen so far. But yeah, this guy is definitely somebody that was appointed to be a Trump yes man, in my opinion.
Well, I don't know if it's a Trump yes man, actually, to be quite honest. I think
or a CDC maybe yes man.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I honestly think until the little glimmer that he got with regard to his vaping ban and then saw what happened. So we have to remember the president did at some point look around him and go, I can't trust these motherfuckers. Yeah. And it's his health secretary and his CDC and FDA, right? Yeah. So like he went, oh my God, these people, I can't trust them. And they sound just like all my other enemies. Like I've been saying all this time, it's the same enemy. Yeah. And so, no, I think this guy, This guy, is put there and he's a part of that process. I wanted to add, so he said he's going to let the science lead him.
Yes.
Now, those types of statements should be the kind of statements that we're looking for across, from scientists, from public health, from politicians, from educators, and so forth.
Yes.
If they make a statement like that, they should be fired. That's as simple as that, or not get hired, because they don't understand science and they're using it as a thing, like it's a noun. Like, well, I follow science.
Yes.
So if you don't believe science, if you use any language like that, so now obviously this means everybody in climate change has to go, but I'll deal with that in a second. Science doesn't work that way. It's corrupted, and it's corrupted in their language. It's corrupted in their brain. They don't see science as a discovery process. They see science as a truth-making process.
Yes.
Which is abhorrent to science. So all of them, that's all poison. If you think that science is truth and should lead, that's where we're at right now, is because of that thinking.
Unbelievable. All right, we got phone calls lined up. Thank you guys for calling in. I'm going to bring in the first one. 408, you are on the air with Brent, Phil, and Dimi.
Is that me?
That's you.
Oh, okay. This is Jan Parcel. I'm thinking of the story of the little boy who cried wolf.
Okay.
So he runs up to the town. He says, wolf, wolf, and there's no wolf. And he does it again the next day. And then, off and on. He just keeps doing that. And then one day there really is, a wolf or a wolf pack. And he comes running, wolf, wolf, and they don't listen to him because he's been doing that. And so then, they lose a bunch of kids to the wolves, or whatever the story was.
Yeah.
Do you think that crying wolf prevents wolf attacks? I mean, they called epidemics things that weren't. Does that mean there's no such thing as a real one? Because my understanding is, looking at history, there are.
So, Brent,
I think we should be trashing them for causing so many vapors to disbelieve them when we shouldn't be disbelieving them.
So Brent, hold on, Jen. That's a very, very interesting question. I'd love when people call with interesting questions. So I think what Jen is really what she's trying to say is that with all the disbelief, that now that this maybe, again, whether you believe it's serious or not, let's debate that another. But in this particular case, with this serious disease that's out, do you think maybe the public just didn't take it serious enough?
So
I think. I think there's a really good reason not to, after all the lying they've been doing. But
for vapors, yes.
I don't think the virus cares about that.
Right. For vapors, yes. I agree with you, Jen. As vapors, we understand that. But we're talking about in general, this is not just a vaping discussion. This is a population discussion. So I think that we should...
No, but the vapors have friends and family, and especially a lot of the young ones. They know it's crap, and look, that's who was out partying.
Interesting. Let me get Brent in here. What do you think?
Well, I'm having a hard time totally getting my head around the question. But, first, though, hey, Jan, great to hear from you. Jan Parcel, a great supporter of RegWatch. And go to support.regulatorwatch.com and find some money and toss it our way.
Okay.
Just had to do that. Jan, I'm a little...
But you and I have opposite opinions on this one, because I grew up reading epidemic stories from 4th grade. I wanted to be a doctor.
I love it. Opposing views is what this is all about. Go ahead.
Yeah. So... Well, if I get it right here, is that it's the argument that sometimes crying wolf can prepare an organism for the ultimate.
No, I don't think it ever does. The story of the little boy who cried wolf is all that lying pissed his credibility away, and it wasn't there when it was needed.
Okay, so then we're on the same page then, right? And so let me say, Jen, and you've heard this, and this is from script, and I'm just going to do like a line or two, because this is really how I feel on this issue. If you're one of those people who vape that have suddenly found themselves stampeding with the herd, and you know what I mean, the full hair on fire hysteria over COVID-19, stop, take a breath, and then remember the herd you are now running with was just moments ago apoplectic over epidemic of teen vaping, flavor vaping products.
You're saying the opposite of what I'm saying.
No,
I'm saying this is real. My hair's on fire. I've known since 4th grade when to know that my hair should be on fire.
Then you believe
and I'm really, I've been scared for 10 years now that the CDC was going to piss its credibility down the toilet and flush it, and it would be missing in action when we need it.
Okay.
I get you, Jan. By the way, thanks a lot for the question. I think you're right. I think that there's a lot of people that have lost their distrust for whatever reason, and it could be like my family, at least my immediate family, knows what struggles I've been through with vaping and the government and public health, especially here in the United States. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that since people have seen what has happened, for example, with vaping and let's say 𝗏𝗍 from last year, that when this came along, even though at the beginning we know that public health did not take this seriously, we have the tweets and we have the posts and the announcements from them to prove, up to early March, they were not taking this seriously. But when they kicked it into gear, you're saying...
I disagree on that, too. I think they took it completely seriously and wanted to give a monopoly on all the testing and everything to their favorite company, BP Friends, that they're owned by, and they were willing to cause massive numbers of deaths rather than not give that monopoly. And because the way they treated this at first with the testing was not that they didn't want the tests, it was that they only wanted tests their friends were manufacturing.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, again, I can't dismiss it, Jan. I'll be honest with you. I can't dismiss it. You make some very good, valid points, okay? I'll put it there. I'll end it there. How about that? Is that good?
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Jan. Love you. Thanks for calling in. And I see there's a lot of people waiting in line. I'm just going to go down the list based on the whole time that you have been on. 780, you're on the air with Brent, Phil, and Dimi.
How you doing, Jimmy?
Good. How are you, brother?
Good. It's 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗀 calling from Alberta.
Hey, Tom. What's going on, buddy?
Hey. I got a different take on this February 25th thing.
Okay.
What I think happened is you had 𝗏𝗍, and CDC's dealing with 𝗏𝗍. CDC deals with diseases, so everything's going to be in that reference. So you get the epidemic and the youth thing. And then quietly in December, they start hearing about China and what's going on in China. And then they hear about it moving over to Italy and Spain. And on February 25th, they very quickly put the whole vaping thing to bed, which they never should have been dealing with in the first place, because surprise, surprise, they have a real problem to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's largely why we saw that rapid shift at the end of February. They were dicking around where they didn't belong, and all of a sudden they had to be somewhere for a real emergency.
Yeah. Brent,
so you think in a way they were justifying their jobs when they were attacking vaping? They needed something to do?
I think I can't get into the why they were doing it. I think there was a lot of political motivation with regards to vaping. I think they were entirely the wrong body to be dealing with vaping. If you ask a public health organization to deal with a youth uptake issue, of course, they're going to deal with it in public health terms. So now it becomes an epidemic. It becomes a threat to public health because that's who we told to deal with the problem. And then when a real public health problem comes up, now their credibility's shot because they were in a realm that they never should have been. That's my take on it.
Interesting take, Thomas. Brent, any comments?
Well, that's twice now I've heard about the CDC's credibility being shot, and that's not the case. I don't know if any of you have seen this right now, but like $4 billion with another $2 billion from the Fed, and then hundreds and hundreds of billions in Canada, and then everywhere else, and nobody's working, and 180 countries are locked down. And where is CDC not being taken credibly? Yeah. I've heard this now twice, and I cannot believe that somebody could say that. The CDC, maybe around our little world, and maybe a few other somewhere,
you're right,
might be saying this or that, but we're shut down.
I have to agree with Brent on this. I really do. I think in our own little world, Tom, we know, okay? We know, but we are, on Facebook, on YouTube, regurgitating the same things over and over again to 2% of the vapors in the world that really gives a shit about where this industry goes. And I think that the majority of people don't. I think that the majority of people blindly will say, well, the CDC told me I need to get this new toilet, this new smart toilet that really recognizes my butthole, which is, by the way, is a true story, and I'll show it to you here in a little bit. And that's what I should get.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I should get. And I think a lot of people do feel that way, and I do believe that this is why we're in the position that we're in right now. This is why we're fucked, basically.
Yeah, and I'm not, you know, Thomas, I respect Thomas's opinion.
Absolutely. I do too. I don't agree with him a lot of times, but I respect him. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I totally do. Look, I mean, I think here, you guys, with inside our entire community, not just vaping.
Take your time. I'm going to put you on hold. Thank you, Tom. Go ahead.
This division
that's happened. I'm going to pop off.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. This division has happened, and really, it is really an us and them thing. And I think it's really important for people to understand that everybody wants to be liked by the left. Right. And when you're in a global pandemic and it's about health, and that whole side there is singing Kumbaya and bringing you over, a lot of people that are normally fighting for their rights and independence from this force have rightly stood over on that side. This is like the one issue that, you know, conservatives or libertarians or somebody like that, somebody who's fighting for, you know, individual rights with vaping and stuff, could be on the other side with those people safely, right? And feel virtue with them, which is a really powerful thing to feel. So almost on every other issue we are on the outside, this side you're standing inside and can bask in some of that virtue. Somebody like me chose immediately to not do that because I recognized what was happening, and I have to be true to our reporting and what we see. And what we see is like a dangerous, overblown response to this virus. Nobody knows what its real impact is, except for the fact that there's very few people dying, and there's so many lies that we know then that this thing doesn't exist. And as I watched, you know, read Twitter, and I see it morph into another example of Trump derangement syndrome just on steroids, it just only further confirms to me that this is an ideological, you know, hysterical response to a threat.
What would the response be if this was something that was extremely more serious, like a war or a plague or something like that? You know, that's a little bit of a scary thought as well, too, right?
Well, I mean, so much of what this response was would be absolutely necessary to fight something worse.
Yes.
Right. You know, this is where you go when it's really, really bad.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Where do you go from here? That's what like, what are they going to do?
Unbelievable.
Put us in isolation buckets or whatever on nitrogen, you know, for the next.
I wanted to ask your opinion on that too. And I don't want to downplay what's happening. I don't want to downplay the deaths or anything, right? But do you believe we've become a world of wimps? Okay, and let me explain that a little bit. Back when I was growing up, germs were good, right? I mean, we germs built our immune system. We never had all this hand washing, and it's like, how did we survive that period? I don't know. I don't understand how I'm still alive, and I didn't have antibacterial soap back then. You know, so if this is the response for something like this, how bad is the response going to be for something that's serious? And again, I'm not saying COVID's not serious, right? But in the grand scheme of things, maybe it's not.
I think it's a logical question. Again, I think that it goes to show that nobody expected this to happen. I think it shows the unpreparedness of this. And this is not the first time this has happened. It's happened a few times over the last 20 years. But you agree, Brent. I mean, with 9/11 is a prime example. Nobody was expecting that. Nobody's expecting somebody's going to steal a plane and fly it into the World Trade Center, correct? That many deaths on U.S. soil. We're not prepared. We're not prepared for this by any means. Do the means justify the ends of what we're doing now? I think history will judge it, and people like you have the opinion that no, it's way overblown what's going on. I am partially in your camp. Like, I got one foot in, okay, but I'm not fully, fully to commit into the Brent Stafford camp. But it does make you wonder if something it can possibly happen. With bioterrorism and everything that we're seeing out there, and the technology today, it could possibly happen even worse. What is going to be? There's really nothing left. As far as I'm concerned, 10 million unemployed in the United States now. You know, we're all locked up. You know, where else could it possibly happen? We can all go into individual bunkers, I guess, at some point. But it's the same result as basically as what we're seeing now. Imagine if we didn't have the internet. So
I honestly, fear of death is something that we as human beings, have to live with, throughout forever. So it's this crazy mixed up understanding that progressives have when it comes to risk.
Yeah.
They really, really have a problem with risk. Unbelievable problem with risk. That just it just through every single thing, it's this fear of it's funny. In a way, the people who believe that they are 100% for change, always change, forever change. We must have change. Anybody who doesn't want change is a bigot, a racist, a reactionary, blah, take your pick, right? It's on the change issue, right? And they're the ones that are just absolutely, completely freaked out about anything in the future that they can't control.
Yeah.
They're like, they're just hard. It's hard to really pin that down. What I can tell you is that when it comes to fear of germs and hygiene, there's a correlation in the 20th century, and that's obviously in Germany. The entire German population for decades and grew in its fear over hygiene and germs, and that really drove the development of the fascist, way in which that the people were controlled, right? So you don't need to put this on a leader. You don't need to say, oh, Hitler, because Germany was Germany before Hitler, and Germany had these things inside of it and its thinkings inside of it. And so they were deathly afraid of germs, and hygiene was a big deal. So when you spin up an entire country that's armed with money in the West, who thinks it's got virtue, and you spin it up into a fear over the base things in life that kill us, and that is bacteria and virus, really bad things can happen. Considering that the hubris that a government could stop a virus, that in and of itself should scare the death out of people. Yeah. That there's other people out there that think that government can stop a virus.
Yeah. Let me pull up a super chat question, and then I see people online. Please stand by. Those of you that are waiting online, I'm going to bring you in based on your hold time. Jim Bolton, thanks for the super chat question. Have you heard people floating the theory trying to tie the vaping illnesses to COVID, like COVID came earlier via vape products from China? Just today, by the way, I just want to put this out. Just today, I got a message about this. Like somebody's trying to link 𝗵𝗵𝗄, with COVID, and maybe the 𝗵𝗵𝗄 cases were actual corona cases. Go ahead, Phil.
Dimitri, a few days ago, a friend of mine, Lisa, who's a nurse assistant, sent me a whole bunch of x-rays, and she did the same thing. She tried to say that 𝗵𝗵𝗄 was actually COVID.
Yes. Brent?
It's interesting. I mean, wow. That would be one spectacular thing. The timing is pretty darn good too.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
And frankly, yeah, like there was something about 𝗵𝗵𝗄 that always felt unreal. Like we never really saw people. We saw, like, why is it that we have all of these pictures? They're progressive porn, like they really rub the erogenous zone of a public health professional. Ooh. All these young people with ventilators and stuff lying in hospital beds. Yeah. How did those pictures get out? Somebody had to sign major releases for that, because of HIPAA and all of the other, and there was like 30 and 40 of them, and they all came. The appearance of those right there in and of itself made me go, there's something wrong here for sure. Yeah. And so really, like it's like it was almost a simulation of a disease, but they needed to run it through mainstream media because they needed to run it through mainstream media to have mainstream media at work in those channels and have everything in their messaging. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to write a conspiracy theory, that would be it.
Yeah.
That they needed to run the propaganda part first through the machine. It would prep the populace and prep the media and get the channels working.
I think in this particular case, I get it. I see where people are going with this. I can't put the two and two together simply because we know in the cases of the people that got sick with 𝗵𝗵𝗄, we had a bio on them. We saw the history of them. It was proven that they were cartridges that were altered here in the United States by adding vitamin E acetate in them. We know that the majority of the people that died through that were using these particular products. And again, I'm not a radiologist, or I can't compare the x-rays from then. I mean, if you have a lung disease, I'm assuming they're going to look the same, but I can't put two and two together when it comes to that. I'm not saying that 𝗵𝗵𝗄 was not overblown or fabricated or maybe blown out of proportion. I'm definitely on board on that. I'm just not on board on that these two things are the same thing, and what we were seeing earlier in the year has some correlation to what we're seeing now with COVID. And again, that's just my personal opinion. All right, let me go ahead and bring another phone call. I've been waiting so patiently. 772, you're on the air with Brent, Phil, and Dimi.
Yeah, hi, Brent, Phil, and Dimi. This is Robin. How y'all doing?
Great, Robin. How you doing?
Hi, Robin.
I'm doing fine. Been listening and taking notes down from all three of you. I just want to comment, try and do this real fast.
Okay.
I used to be a coder and a biller, codes and billing, for the state of Florida Health Department here locally in Marion County. Okay, so I'm familiar with the ICD-10 codes they're called. That's just a short way of saying the International Classification of Diseases, ICD. Okay. So I had started checking this out to see, well, what kind of code? I wonder. They had to come up with something for COVID. And as I started looking, and I'm looking on the website now, too, at American College of Physicians, where they lay out all the codes. It's not looking good, as far as I'm concerned, for the CDC. Or it's either them, or it's the media, or it's a combination of both. Because the way it's described on the opening code, it won't do any good to give you the numbers. I can send the link to you guys to read for yourself. But anyway, the code, the first one at the top, it's acute respiratory disease. That it's like if you're in school, remember back in the days, you'd read a chapter in the history book and the teacher would assign you to create an outline. So you learned how to make outline forms. So this would be considered the main header, acute respiratory disease. Under that, now you're going to get into the code for COVID. The first line in there says, you have these codes, this code for COVID can be considered, and this is in quotes, either suspected, possible, or probable, or even inconclusive.
Okay.
This is what they're saying. Now, let's think about the numbers, going back to when you were all talking about these astronomical numbers that are out there, and we all know that pretty much the flu has had higher numbers on its own for the last few years or so. So here, they're fine with, under the very first description of the code, in other words, if you just suspect, or it's possible, or probable, maybe it's just plain inconclusive, that this person that just walked into my doctor's office is telling me, they want to be tested for the COVID, they are or they aren't really showing signs, on and on and on. Okay, so they give you the descriptions for all of those. It can be just an encounter for observation, it says, or suspected exposure. Maybe you were around somebody who had actual exposure. Encounter for a screening, things like this. Then it breaks down after that to about 6 other codes for other viral pneumonia, acute bronchitis, acute lower respiratory infection, bronchitis, respiratory disease, other. How vague is that? Other. They might have an other specified respiratory disorder, but they're going to classify it as COVID. Okay? So here's where we get into now with the numbers that we wonder, well, what numbers can we believe and what can't we believe? Because it's not really hard data, what in science they would call hard data. It's soft data. You see that on the pressers every day. Yeah. These are projected models. It's what they think might be coming.
I think
all right.
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No. What I'm saying is that, I mean, I'm with you. And I think that I think you're saying what we said at the beginning of the show as well, too, is that, we don't have the data to back up what they're saying because of the unpreparedness of this country for this, and I think across the world. And what we're receiving is not really raw data that can be analyzed correctly to be able to give a correct response or even a correct solution to this problem.
Right, because the diagnoses are all over the place.
Correct.
When they put on here, and right now I'm on the cdc.gov website. They'll tell you the total cases. They'll tell you the total deaths as of today's date. And then come the asterisks underneath it. The first one says it all. Data includes both confirmed and presumptive positive cases
Agree.
of COVID. Now, so if they're giving us this whole big total of ones we're presuming it might be COVID and others that are absolutely confirmed, you marry the two together, then the media takes the ball and runs with it and says, look at all these cases. Well, no, they need to break it down so the public isn't going through fear battles with this, so that the public can calm down.
I agree with you. I mean, I really don't. You covered it all. There's nothing to add. I completely agree with you. And this unknown, because of the data not being correctly, is scary. It's scary to me that such huge decisions are being made based on so much incomplete data. That is a scary thought. And I think we're on board on that. Phil, you agree, right?
Yeah, I mean,
thank you for calling in, Robin. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Robin.
Thanks, Robin.
Doesn't that go back to CDC?
That's okay.
Oh, hold on. I put her on mute. Hold on. Go ahead, Robin. Finish your thought. Did I put her on hold? Okay, go ahead.
Doesn't that go back to CDC and 々? I mean, they didn't test, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, they didn't test for THC.
Absolutely. I totally agree. By the way, I was not joking when I said this earlier. This is going to be my present for Phil coming up on his birthday. I mean, this is really innovation. There's a new smart toilet that recognizes you by the shape of your asshole, Phil. So your butthole, I don't know if you know this, is like a snowflake, which is exactly what I tell you every time that we go out on a trip together. Your butthole is like a snowflake. No two of them are exactly alike.
That's right.
So what this is able to do is it's able to scan your butthole, okay? And this came from Stanford Research. This is where our money is being spent on researching. It's the panopticon of looking up your own ass with a toilet that monitors your health by analyzing your stool, urine, and the timing of both using 4 cameras and an array of sensors and identification systems. I think this is groundbreaking. Can you imagine? There's even examples. Those are samples of buttholes. Absolutely, these are samples to kind of show you that no butthole is exactly the same, and then you won't have to do labs. I'll analyze your urine and your stool directly, from your toilet. And I think this is pretty amazing. And
to me, Dimitri, it's just one other thing that I got to think about. You got to keep that camera lens clear, otherwise, I mean, you really won't know what's going on, right? So that's something else that we have to think about.
I just hope that it has Wi-Fi, that every time you go in, it recognizes your butthole. It'll just alert me on my phone. I'll know that it's gonna be. Let me say, all right, let's get back to some phone calls. Now that Brent has returned, I see 262. I'm gonna get to you right after this. First, 716. You're on the air with Brent, Phil, and Dimi. What's up?
Well, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Oh.
Good evening. It's actually amazing to be on the line with you, gentlemen. The first thing I want to say is thank you both. I actually met Phil up here in Canada 5, 6, 7 years ago when I first quit smoking, thanks to vaping. And since I quit vaping, I've lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
But that's why I want to say so apropos this is, because we spent last year working with a Buddhist temple and museum, because we use meditation and mindfulness for our health. And so we've actually been living this since November.
Okay.
And so we have quite an insight onto actually what's going on.
Okay.
And you seem to, a couple little points. First thing is there is some studies now showing where it came from, but we won't even mention that. But our first introduction to it seems to be around November. The temple had a grand opening, and this is what I wanted to share with everybody. We met at a grand opening for a temple here in Ontario. There was tens of thousands of people from around the world, a lot of them from mainland China. We were practicing social distancing, but not overly so. We were very tightly packed in. We were fine. But we didn't get what we think is probably the corona until the volunteer hot pot and the hot pot really wasn't hot enough, and we think we may have got it. But the reason why I mention is because it seems you were wondering how this came to surprise the West. We've been sharing on our social media, kind of warning people what to expect, because we were, for example, my wife works with a young lady who has family still in China. She's lost 2 relatives to the disease. So when you ask, are the numbers correct? 3,000 people died. There's no way. There's 6 times the size of the U.S. New York's already lost as many.
Yeah.
So what we've been watching is it's the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And from a Buddhist perspective, I'll give you the reason why they've been hiding it so intently is because there is a tradition in China that a regime change comes from some sort of major disaster. So when they saw this happening, they tried their best to prevent it. So there's where we're at. The WHO is very heavily influenced, and it seems the West either didn't want to make us panic, but in the process, when they finally told us how important it is for us to watch out, they made us panic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what we've seen.
Interesting.
Since the end of last year.
Well, first of all, congratulations on quitting smoking and quitting vaping altogether. You're a success story.
Good
But
God, yes.
and then the second thing.
That's what I wanted to reiterate.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for your hard work.
So listen, I appreciate it. I'm gonna put you on hold so we can discuss this a little bit even better. Listen, as somebody that's been to China multiple times, I think both me and Phil will agree that there's a lot of things that the Chinese want to keep in there. You agree on that, Brett?
Yeah, I've been there physically once to Beijing for an event, and just my sense too is that there's a way that things get done.
Yeah, and they're a proud country. They're very cultural. They don't want to show weakness to anybody, and there's no doubt that they're trying to control their citizens, but they're also trying to control the message that they put out to the rest of the world. Okay, so no disagreement with me on that with the caller. The fact that this has been around since November. Again, I'm on board. How can I dispute, Brent? I can't dispute that, right? I mean, there could have been early signs of this in other countries, or just simply people didn't know what it was.
Well, and then there's the story isn't there the story some American person took it over to China?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've read 150 conspiracy theories.
Tons of them. There's a lot,
absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
The fact of the matter is that the one organization that needed to take this thing seriously didn't. It was too busy blaming vaping for a mysterious lung illness.
Yes.
That they knew that it wasn't.
That's not
related.
A conspiracy theory. That's absolute fact.
It's fact.
I mean, you can't deny that.
No. So every vapor out there that knows that to be fact should be skeptical of some parts of what's going on with COVID. Now, even if everything here on balance works out to be good, right? Now, that could happen. It could very well. Yeah, we shut everything down and pushed everybody into the things. That probably had some benefit for mitigation and so forth. What about the next time? Is this going to happen every 6 months? Because the progressive left is going to do that. I guarantee you that right after April 30th, it is going to unlock into a barrage of full-on media against Trump. Because there's an election coming. Yeah. That election ain't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so it's going to get fought. So the left is going to fight that election on COVID. Yeah. They're going to try to take Trump out. And the left is going, like Democrats, are going to have to run on another lockdown. So that's the thing. They're going to actually politically, they're so invested in the lockdown, they're going to have to run on it to do it again.
Interesting.
So that's why everybody needs to be right now, even if you don't believe it was overblown, you still have to stop and take a breath and go, yeah, but they're going to be selling this again in November.
Yeah.
And you're going to vote on it.
Interesting. That's very interesting. 262, you're on the air with Brent, Phil, and Dimi. What's up?
Wow. This is the first time calling in.
Hey, what's your name?
I like both your, my name's Chris.
Hey, Chris. Nice to see you.
Chris. I enjoy both of your shows, Brett and you and Phil.
Thank you.
You guys have, both of your shows have done a lot for vaping.
Thank you.
I always say you never let a good crisis go to waste. The rich, the stimulus package that just went out biggest transfer in wealth in the United States history. Corporations are going to receive boatloads of money because of this.
Yeah. And we're going to get
People will
$1,200
get
so
the
we can get a
crumbs.
tiger. That's basically what we're going to do. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The citizens will get the crumbs.
That's right.
And
Always.
the big corporations will get trillions.
Yeah.
And small businesses are going to go out of business. And we are going to become a more monopolized country than we already are, which worries me with vaping. Because what I see with the vaping and the PMTA, the PMTA to me is just a sign of they want
pay to play
vaping to be monopolized.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's why they're making you go. That's why they're making everybody and anybody go through these enormous hoops, because they don't want a free market of small, medium-sized businesses competing. They want it consolidated.
Yeah.
They'd rather have 5, 6 big corporations doing it all instead of leaving it alone. And that's what I see the PMTA as.
Yeah.
And so it bothers me because when corporations merge with government, this is what I call fascism, and it keeps going in this direction.
Yeah. Comment.
Let me just
And as
let me
far as
interrupt first.
Hold on a second, Chris.
I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah. I just want to mention that what Chris said there is not to be just pushed aside. It's the technical definition of fascism. Technically, it's fascism when the government and corporations, not small business, free market, when government and corporations fuse. And of course, regulatory bodies have been serving in that position. And then and public health is a regulatory body too. And so when that all fuses together, that is actually fascism. So racism you add later,
Yeah.
all the other stuff, right?
Interesting. A comment from Periscope. This was an intentional act to collapse capitalism.
I'd say 100%.
What?
This was an intentional act to collapse capitalism.
Yes. And I agree with Brent about this. And this is the issue I have, because they don't want this free market of this vaping industry. This is not where the majority of the country is anymore.
Yeah.
So now we got this thing going on over here, and they don't want that. The big corporations, the billionaires. Let me tell you, they're not capitalists.
Yeah.
They want it all. They want
Yes.
control, and they pay the government to do their dirty work.
Yeah.
So if you idolize a guy like Jeff Bezos, he's not a capitalist. He's a fascist. He has a lot of power over government, just like many of these other multi-billionaires that control our government.
Yeah.
We have no say. They don't want free enterprise. They don't want the flow of capitalism. Brett can say it better than I can say it. But that's how I see it, and that's where I see it going with the vaping industry. And this COVID-19 is a perfect opportunity. Like I said, we just got a stimulus bill that they just printed the money, and before even anybody got a stimulus check, all the big banks, all the big corporations, they all got their bailout money already. And so when I see a PMTA loaded with all this stuff that makes it impossible for companies to go through, that's the sign of them shutting down the vaping industry as best they can and consolidating it only to the biggest corporations. That's how I see it. And so that's what irritates me, because if it wasn't for vaping, I wouldn't stop smoking. And the fact that it's going to be potentially consolidated to 6 corporations, I'm sorry, I feel we live in a fascist country. That's what I feel like.
Thanks, Chris.
Today,
Thanks.
Our government. I'm sorry. Okay.
No. You're fine.
That's
You're fine. I just want to make sure I give everybody a chance, because we only have a few more minutes left on the phone lines. 215-383-5752. Call in if you have any questions or comments. Thanks, Chris, for calling in. I really, really appreciate it.
Yep.
And,
no problem.
I do too, Chris.
I can't disagree with him. I mean, this goes beyond vape. I know vaping is very, very close to us as well too. But just think about what the independent vaping industry has gone through in the last year, Brent, with the Uvalde scare and business going down and restrictions and flavor bans and just one after the other. And now here comes this, which is going to be the nail in the coffin for a lot of small businesses. And we see a stimulus package, which I didn't know, by the way. Let me just put this out there. I could talk about this for hours. Just today, I found out that in the stimulus bill, if you have a felony or if you're an ex-convicted felon, you cannot get this. If you're a business owner, you cannot get the stimulus package. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
This is something to look into. And again, I'm not trying to bash anybody. All I'm saying is that fact, there's a lot of ex-felons in the vaping industry. Okay? Do I agree, Phil? I mean, we know. But not that they're bad people, okay? I believe everybody has a second chance, and I believe if people can change their lives, absolutely they can. But how unfair is it that you change your life as an ex-felon, you created a business, you employ people, you put food on people's plate, you pay people's rent, they raise their kids, and now all of a sudden here comes a stimulus bill, and because you have a felony, you cannot get the stimulus bill. It's nuts to me. It's crazy.
Do you? Yeah, I would love to actually see a source on that,
okay,
so I could sniff that out.
So I will get you in touch with a small business that I don't want to say his name, but a small business contacted me and told me that this is actually happening to them, and I'm trying to get him in touch with state representatives here in Tennessee to help him out and see how we can get this thing resolved. But I'll definitely put you in touch with a guy, and maybe he can give you all the information of his experience so far. It's absolutely horrible what's going on. But this goes. Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
Before you take the next call, I want to ask Brent the question: how does the United States and how does Canada change after COVID-19 goes away?
I mean, that's such a huge question. It's really hard to kind of nail it down. I think no matter what, you're going to have people more fearful just about things. You're certainly going to have, which is just so disgusting, this social distancing. It's going to be encouraged as some kind of a value to add to your regular life. And so, because they're going to want to, it's a way to keep people prepared for the next one that they serve up on, when it does happen, when they serve it up, because there will be more. I mean, I was just saying to you, I mean, COVID could be seasonal. Fauci says it's seasonal. I mean, others say it's seasonal, meaning that we'll have this again in November, right? In November, December. So what are we going to do that time, right? This is why we have to get our brains together. So I think immediately how it's going to change is, of course, the economic impact, I'm not even going to hazard a guess. The chances are of it being a disaster is obviously already there. We're just not seeing it yet because the impact's not there yet. And it'll only once we start, running again and things are not reopening, are we going to really get a sense of what's happening. And so, I mean, that's obviously the case. But I mean, our immediate thing is that we have to stop this from happening ever again. And we have to understand this is not a fun-loving battle here. There is an ideology at work that's trying to destroy Western civilization. It's been trying to do it for 250 years. It's been doing it. Seriously, there are people who just don't like that live here in our countries that are anti our country. In the US, it's called anti-Americanism. I mean, you can Google that, you'll find it. It's, replete of the history of the United States of America's anti-Americanism. So, I mean, the people on the right are doing a piss poor job. Conservatives don't understand their role. We don't need conservatives. We need counter-revolutionaries.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Wow. That's man, that's a lot to take in. If you, how long, this question from Mr. Peanuts, how long until we know if COVID-19 is really bad or going to tail off? I don't know. Nobody in the government will tell us. I mean, they're going based on these models, which I don't trust at all. Right, Brent? I mean, I don't trust these models at all. What I do trust the sampling, but nobody's doing sampling. I mean, why would they do sampling in a poll? Like, if you look at elections, every time look at all the sampling that goes on there because they want to make sure they get accurate, what the vote. Am I correct in saying this, Phil? Brent? But isn't that random sampling being used in elections before all these exit polls that come out? So the politicians will know, basically, how the trends are going. And they're very, very accurate in elections, but we're not using it for one of the greatest virus, supposedly what the government is telling us for the last 100 years.
So epidemiology's base rule, like the base thing that it does, is it goes into the field and it surveys samples right? Brings back, measures, collates, and then extrapolates onto a national scale, and then releases its data. That is what it does in kindergarten, grade 1. That's it. They're refusing to do it.
And they're not doing it with vaping either. And they're not doing it with vaping either. Because all you gotta do is do a random sampling in these big cities of people that have actually quit smoking with vaping, adults, and you can get age, health, flavors. You can solve all these issues that we're facing with on a state-by-state level now and eventually federally by doing random sampling, and they're not doing it. So on that, I have to say that this is done deliberately.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, and so keep in mind, guys, that CDC never lets
90 seconds.
Go ahead.
The CDC controls the data. That's their whole key thing. That's the raison d'etre of the CDC. And here they are with none of that data. And clearly that's either it's incompetence or it's treachery. Take your pick. Either way, they've shut down Western civilization.
Yeah.
So they got to go, right? The people at CDC got to go. And so simple as that, right?
Yeah.
So, and look at this. What they're going to do is they're trying to prevent any spoilage of they're trying to prevent any data from getting in that will taint their ability to control the narrative next year.
Yeah.
So what CDC is already working on, they're working on their models that will take the bits of information that we have about the number of people that are infected and then put it into their model. And their model is going to spit out then what they think was the number of people in America that were infected. And then from there, they'll take the number of deaths that they've got, which include a bunch that are probably not from COVID because of the coding system, and then divide that and get the mortality rate. So they're going to completely 100% control the mortality rate at the end of this, which is the sole number with which will either prove that what they've done is justified. So they own every step of it. They're the ones that rang the hysteria. They're the ones that, drop the gauntlet on the entire world. They're the ones doing the measuring. They're the ones doing the analysis, and they're going to spit out whatever number they want. And that's criminal.
Interesting. I saw a question in the chat. How do we get Jerry fired? That's a very, very good question. We could start off by make sure that we're using hashtags in our social media posts. Okay, fire the SG. Resign 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹. These are the two that are trending right now. And I do want to say this, that resign 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹 was not started by me. Fire the SG was started by me. But resign 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹 was started by a doctor that has nothing to do with vaping. And I was so glad to see that this got picked up. And how does this work? You're going to say, how does that hashtag work? If you go on Twitter right now and you put in resign 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹 here on the top in the search bar, it'll show you all. You can top tweets or latest. It'll show you all the various tweets that come up with this hashtag, and you're going to see obviously there's vapors that are using it, like me and Kevin here. But if you scroll down, you're going to see people that are not within the vaping industry that have picked up on this. Okay, and this is what we need to do, folks. The Twitter numbers have been horrible lately from the vaping industry. I hate to say it. As soon as we get, an extension on PMTA, or once the big threat passes, everybody goes back to being complacent and nobody cares anymore. We need to keep the pressure on. Look at these tweets. Helena Duncan, she's not a vapor. She's talking about the same thing. She's talking about what he did in Indiana with the HIV break. Maria, Patricia, you're going to see all these people. David Emmanuel, but he's a vapor. But you're going to see all these tweets that have come up with resign 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹. And trust me, this guy is so thin-skinned, okay? All he worries about what people think about him, that he looks at all of these. And just like he looks at him, there's other people that look at him as well, too. In order to get it trending, get on Twitter, voice your opinion, hashtag it, fire the SG, hashtag it, resign 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗹. This is the way that we can effectively use social media to make a change, and we need to be doing it. Oh, and by the way, while you're on Twitter, make sure you follow this guy, okay? Regulator Watch, it's Reg Watch Canada, okay, at Reg Watch Canada. That is the Regulator Watch Twitter, and of course, Brent Stafford's Twitter. At Brent Stafford, just like his name. Go ahead and follow him while you're on there as well, too. And follow each other. This is how effectively social media works. We follow each other. We see interesting posts. If you see an interesting post, retweet it. You can retweet it with a comment, meaning adding your own opinion of what that particular tweet is going to be. But also make sure that you retweet stuff that can trend, all right? Just yesterday, I think it was this morning, Phil made a tweet about New York Governor Cuomo, which is going to be our last topic, and I'll let you know, Brent. We've kept you way too long. where Andrew Cuomo found the opportunity during this crisis, right, to pass a budget that effectively bans flavored e-liquid in New York. Okay, completely. Any refillable, not just flavored, anything that's refillable, including tobacco, is banned in New York during the big crisis. And I saw Phil's tweet about it, where he said that Cuomo said that based on some anecdotal evidence, it might be okay to promote this drug, hydrochlorine, I think it is. I'm probably saying that wrong.
𝗬𝗬𝗀𝗀.
Thank you. So on that, he's supporting that drug, but the anecdotal evidence of people quitting smoking in the state was not enough for him to say, okay, well, we're going to give this product a chance to help New Yorkers quit smoking. We're going to ban it. Selective, fascism, I guess you want to call it. Yeah, does that fit there? So I found that interesting, that tweet very heartfelt and very interesting. So I retweeted it, and then I tagged on that tweet the hashtags that I wanted to add or the people that I wanted to see. And that's how social media works. That's how the effective change becomes. If more and more people get upset about it, trust me, not only Donald Trump, but everybody sees these tweets, and then people start talking about it, and they start to question their government. They start to question Jerome Adams. They start to question these people that are making laws like Cuomo that fit an agenda. And in this particular case, New York State is a prime example. Just keep in mind, there's some things happening in New York State behind the scenes trying to get some legal challenges on that particular topic. So don't give up hope there yet. But it is unfortunate that happened in your home state, Phil.
Yeah. It's truly, well, I mean, my home state, I consider New Jersey, but, it's going to affect a lot of my friends who vape in New York.
Yeah.
It's going to affect my wife who vapes there. It's going to affect a lot of shop owners that I know. Some of my happiest times in vaping were spent going to New York vape shops as they opened, and everybody was happy, and everybody was converting, and people were quitting smoking. And now we have this. We've got somebody has to tell that 70-year-old woman who goes in for her peach melon flavor that she can't have it anymore. I think that's disgusting. I really think that's disgusting. Again, it needs to be surgical strikes, not carpet bombing. You don't win this by banning. You don't take it away from somebody who needs it. It's really sad what's going on up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Any thoughts on New York, Brent?
Well, I mean, I just think it's cruel. It's cruelty. I think there's obviously enough people in New York that are decision makers who know the truth about vaping, and still they chose to do this. I mean, there has been movement at the state level with some politicians that have actually eased up in the last couple of weeks, but still it wasn't enough, right? It's the governor that's doing it, so he just sticks it in.
Yes. Two ways.
It was done. I mean, it was really done. It was slimy the way he did it.
Oh yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
It was horrible the way it was done. There was no representation. It was done in the middle of the night. People who weren't there were automatically voted as a yes. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, it's coming from a governor that said just 2 weeks ago that if all of New York's efforts in response to COVID only saved one life, it would be worth it.
Right?
Yeah. So ironic. All right, a couple of ways that you can help out Regular Watch stay on the air, and trust me, folks, we need Brent on the air. If you're a vapor, and I know times are tough right now, a lot of people are unemployed, but if you do have a few extra bucks, toss out those ways. There's two ways that you can do this. You can go to regularwatch.com and then click the support, and then you're going to see a little support form inside there where you can make a donation. You can go on Facebook. There is a fundraiser going on right now. April 2020 Red Watch coverage support. You can go on there. I'm going to do it just right now. I'm just going to donate right now. I don't know if you can you see my.
You're a good man.
I'm just going to do it right now. I'm going to put $100. How about that? And then I'll have to switch to the screen over here because I don't want people to see my card number. But I'm just going to do it right now and just add $100. And just, like I said, I wish I could be more, but both me and Phil have been furloughed as well too. So
it all adds up. It all adds up.
So it is.
And hey, let me just say too as well, for viewers who may be just seeing some of the more politically charged stuff that we're putting out in our new clips kind of stuff and catching this, right? You need to understand where that's coming from. That's coming from 30 years in professional journalism. A chunk of that time I spent doing a graduate degree in postmodernism. So I'm actually trained in the kind of thinking that, these people think like. And then I've been in business for the last 15 years. So, I've got a really rounded kind of a sense here. And RegWatch was created so I could fight for issues that I believed in. And our reputation amongst researchers, public health professionals is very, very high. I don't think there's anybody else that's had the same level of people who have consistently come on our show. So while I'm beating up on epidemiology here, I'm not beating up on all epidemiologists. Same with public health and so forth. And so, so you'll get obviously on-site vaping content on RegWatch, but it's not always, me waving a pitchfork and fire. But right now, I sure am.
By the way, let me just bring this up, and we'll end on this as well too. Do you see a point where civil disobedience will have to happen? I mean, I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he had Eric Weinstein on, and he lost it, especially with the mask thing, right? He brought it up at Joe Rogan. I love seeing that because it has nothing to do with vapors, even though we triggered the mask thing. Me and Kevin Crowley we were the ones that penetrated these tweets and threw the mask in the screenshots of Jerome Adams. But Eric said that, hold on a second. You're telling us a month ago that masks are useless, okay? If the reason was that there's not enough masks for healthcare, you should have said that. But you can't, CDC, WHO, and Jerome Adams, all of them were saying masks are useless for the general public, which is, if you're just a smart person with just your average IQ, okay? Wouldn't you think to yourself, hold on a second, nursing staff and they use masks, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just common sense. People are using masks. And in other countries, in China, we saw people wearing masks all the time. It's not unusual. I mean, for us, it wasn't unusual to see this happening. What was unusual for me is to see the CDC and our government saying masks are useless. Again, it's not. If your point is that we need to have enough for the medical, just say that. Don't say they're useless to deter people from using masks in public. That's completely, even if there's a 5% harm reduction with a homemade mask, it's the same thing as vaping. You have a 5% chance less of catching the virus, even if it's 2%.
So that's very indicative of communism. That's like a trait amongst communist governments. They do that. They can't help themselves. They cannot tell the truth. And sometimes their lies are so, blatant like that, like within such a short period of time, they have to backtrack that the public can see it. And, in a more advanced, communist society, nobody can talk about it. I mean, it just passes through, right?
Yeah. What I found interesting in that podcast, the way that he was, because he got answered, it's like, what are you going to do? What can you do? And he said the same thing. He's like, at some point, people are going to have to, just like what I said last time on the show, Phil, at some people have to revolt. By revolting, I mean get off your keyboard of writing a Facebook post status that's effectively not going to change anything. Most likely you're going to lose friends because they look at your IQ and say you're dumb. Instead of doing that, people are going to have to get out and have civil disobedience. The same thing in New York. Stop selling liquid. Fuck you. Come and take me and arrest me for trying to bring a product of harm reduction in New York City. You want me to stop wearing masks? Write me a ticket or put me to jail because I was wearing a mask. People have to civil disobedience in order to effectively make a change. So my question is to you, do you think we're going to see that?
I would imagine that would be the case. Certainly if the lockdown continues in a sporadic way and it's just doesn't make sense. So for instance, if California and New York, the governors there decide to, extend the lockdown into June, which they discussed, I think that at some point, especially if other places in the country are going back to work. And honestly, it has to start with civil disobedience, because after that, there's only a couple more places it goes.
Yeah, and they're not good.
No, and quite frankly, you can't point to any other time in history with the triggering of civil war or massive worldwide wars of anything that matches this.
Yeah,
this is worse than any other trigger.
I see your point. There's no doubt about it. I am a reasonable and fair man, and I see your point. All right, couple things. What do I think about Trump's comments on funding the WHO? I've talked about it a little bit earlier until I actually see it. I like the fact that it was brought up today. It will be a topic of discussion, I think, here in the next few days, at least publicly. And I think it is a topic that needs to be discussed because the WHO does take a lot of money from this country. But until I see it, when I see it, then I'll believe it, because there's a lot of stuff that's being said in politics, but logistically it doesn't work out. The next thing I want to tell you is that no matter what state you are, if you vape and you don't have access to your products, as long as me and Phil are around, I'm not promising you, I am guaranteeing you that we will find a way to get product to you. I don't care where you're at. I got 3 very good New York City friends, older. Well, one is an older guy. He's 70 years old. Paul Kramer had a heart attack. I've helped him quit smoking. Then Victoria, Phil's met Victoria. She's not doesn't have the best luck when it comes to vaping products, but I've been there every step of the way to make sure that she stays off cigarettes. Both of them immediately messaged me. These are not people that you see on vape shows and stuff like that. They're just people that quit smoking, and in panic, like, should I stock up? What should I do? Like, they're panicking. People are panicking in New York City, in New York. So as long as we're around, and as long as we have a medium to get into, we will find a way, even if it's illegal, to get product to you so you can stay off cigarettes. So I just wanted to put that out there as well, too.
Well, that's where it's going to go. Black market.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
He's forcing that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. It is what it is. We have to continue with our mission to eliminate cigarettes. We can't stop, right? We're not going to let those, Brent, stop us.
We've got to sell like some kind of knick-knack that's like a pitchfork.
Yes.
And somehow connected with vaping with some kind of brand, and we should use that to like at least
I'd like to pitchfork some people in this industry as well too. But anyway, maybe if we put some cartoon labels on it, stuff like that, it'll sell a lot. And some tits. It needs tits. It needs tits and cartoons.
Here, let me toss this at you for an interesting thing.
Okay.
There is probably quite a bit of ad buys that have been canceled, probably in the 30 to 40%.
Yes.
Across the board.
I can see that.
Cable channels are going to be looking for new advertisers. So there could be an opening again.
Yes.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, the fact, I can see that now is a very, very good time to create the Whole Truth campaign again and get it funded, because I think that our money would go a long way right now that everybody's suffering. No doubt about it. You can't these guys, and I'm not saying about everybody, but these guys just go from tree to tree. We went from vape to CBD to weed to hand sanitizer now. And look, I appreciate all the companies that are making hand sanitizer out there and supporting it. I'm just tired of you watching you post it on Facebook like you solved world crisis. Okay? All right. You did a good thing. You're selling sanitizer. You're making money. There's no reason to act like you're the best thing that ever, came along. And second of all, we put it in 60 ml chubby bottles. Like, whose idea was that? I mean, I'm sorry. Again, I'll be the unpopular guy in the room like I always am, but down in your heart that I'm right. Who in the fuck would put sanitizer in a 60 ml bottle? How easily can somebody take that and vape it? You know what I'm saying? At least put it in a different bottle, a bottle that shows that it's something that's going to be for a hand. I mean, the 60 ml Chubby Gorilla bottle is designed to refill liquid. This is what it's been around for. Everybody relates it to that. And we're putting in, alcohol into this bottle that looks exactly the same like it. That's why if you look at hand sanitizers, the bottle is always, square. That it's hand sanitizer simply because people relate the shape with, whatever. I'm an asshole. I'm an asshole.
Huge point.
I need to get one of those smart toilets that recognizes assholes, but instead of going on my butt face, it's going to go on my face, literally, because I'm an asshole, I guess.
Okay, Dimi, before you cut me loose here, there's one thing that I have not shared anywhere.
Yes.
Not on my show, nothing, not on the site
Very,
or
very
anything.
exciting.
An exclusive.
It's exclusive to you. Okay, let me see if I can get this out fast. Now, this is like all the way back to the start of this whole thing, and it was with the sports. If you look at it, the first trigger, the first dominoes to fall were NBA. And then, the rest of the sports league. But NBA, like, this is so early that the NBA fell and then started triggering everything after.
Okay.
And that always really worried me. Why did professional sports?
You're meaning, just a second, let me interrupt you. You're saying that they were the first of the major sports to stop the league and the season and so forth, right?
Right. NBA was first, and then
NBA
the
was
rest
first. Okay, I just want to make sure I understand.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. And within like 3 days, all of the professional sports organizations stopped. They'd originally the week before had been saying that they'll absolutely play, but without the crowds, and that would be safe. You've got the teams and some cameramen, and if people have got to be locked in at home, you'd want to have your sports. I mean, it's such a huge part of a huge part of the life, right? So you would want to have that, right? But they were the first to go, and it was a corporate thing, and that there was liability issues. Public health was talking to their public health because they got public health people inside all these sports leagues. Decisions were made, fully closed. You know what? I know why they did that, and it has nothing to do with public health. It has everything to do with controlling the narrative. Because if they allowed this virus that is a little worse than a cold, could be worse than a flu, might not be, but it presents with runny nose and a few things. And most people who get it, like 80%, don't even know they get it. And 90%, 98%, live, right? So there was no way at that time, that they could at all allow professional sports to continue in all the media coverage, because, LeBron James will get sick with a runny nose. He'd be back in 10 days. You've got the population of the most taken care of, the youngest and most healthiest people in all of Western civilization, playing their sports with the media covering them. And when they would get it, they would drop out and then they would come back.
You're blowing my mind right now, Brent.
If that happens to 3 athletes, no hysteria.
You're blowing my mind. You're blowing my mind. I mean, okay. I'm not going to say I'm on board with this idea. I'm not. But it's definitely all I'm saying. Listen, I see it. I get the concept of it. It makes sense. It makes sense. I don't see why they could not continue to play.
They would have no control of the narrative.
Yes. I mean, no, with no fans in the stadium, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they'd get millions in revenue from views. People who got nothing to do. They're on home. I mean, if you're going to spend $60 to go see the Yankees, you'll pay $20 to see them on TV. Absolutely.
Totally.
I mean, the revenue would have been there for them to do it, especially I have literally penetrated YouTube so deep in the last 10 days. I think I've seen the end of YouTube and I'm going all the way from the beginning again. But I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. And it's an interesting concept. We'll leave it at that. Maybe the people that are watching this on replay, leave us a comment down there. What do you think about this theory that the reason why the sports teams were stopped for playing is because they didn't want people to see that, hey, you might get sick for a few days, then you're going to be back, and everybody's going to be, oh, there's nothing wrong with this virus. And I think that's where you're going with it, Brent. I think it's an
That's
interesting
exactly
theory.
it. Bingo.
Phil, what do you think about that? I want to get your thoughts. I don't want to put you on the spot because I know.
No, it's okay. It's an interesting thought. I mean, it really, really is.
Yeah.
I listened to Brent. I've listened to a lot of his shows, and some of the things that he's saying make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
But then you also have to look at the situation like in Italy, with what's happening with the hospitals there. I mean, as far as I know. I can't confirm it, right? But I find myself questioning everything every single day, what's going on right now. I really do. And I can't believe that it's gotten to this point. I can't believe that our country has been turned off by this. I mean, I'm aggravated with the news coverage. I mean, I'm looking at numbers right here. And I shared these numbers the last show. We can talk about communicable disease deaths, seasonal flu deaths, deaths of mothers during birth. I mean, what if media reported here deaths caused by smoking? Let's talk about something that's close to our heart. What if media reported on deaths caused by smoking the same way they report on deaths caused by COVID? They did the same scary charts and the same scary maps and the same scary numbers and they did exactly the same. My God, it would look 10 times worse because deaths caused by smoking were 1,341,123 this year worldwide. And as I look at this, it keeps ticking up.
Yeah. I feel bad now. I feel like you're in the Twilight Zone lost, and I want to bring you back, and I want to save you, Phil. I feel helpless seeing you like that. I can't. I've got to social distance, or else I'd be in a car coming down there to keep you sane, for crying out loud.
It's crazy. I mean, deaths caused by alcohol this year, 670,000. You know, I just don't know what to believe.
I hear
well,
you.
it's really easy. You know, they don't care about people because that same attitude they have towards vapors, right? So, I mean, you know, arguing about saving lives is no good with these people. That should be pretty clear by now.
Yeah.
Because they
I can't
really
argue
don't
that. I can't argue that. All right, just a little programming note. I'm going to hope this Tuesday with the Smoker Show to do the first transmission on Roku. We have a private channel on Roku. The way to add it is to go to www.my.roku.com/ad/vape now. You're going to see a video that's up there. I have it as a placeholder now. As I'm working and trying to learn the system of Roku, what we're trying to do is have a transmission on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, and the comfort of your bed, naked if you wish, or on your smart toilet now that recognizes your butthole. You can bring up Roku and watch the Smoker Show and hopefully the show here as well too. Now let's get to the poll. Big poll that we have here. Let's see if anybody has voted on the name. What we had is 4 choices: AIO, Air It Out, The DP Show, Bb-emancipation, and Head to Head. And the results are showing that The DP Show is leading 30%, and Bb-emancipation is tied at 30%, and AIO is at 22%. Wow. Wow, Phil. I
would not have thought that.
I would have not thought that. Look, I'll be honest with you.
No, I'll be honest. I think I know what you were going to say, but I'll say it.
Go ahead.
Think the DP Show will get more clicks than AIO.
Yeah, absolutely. There's absolutely double penetration is a big niche on Pornhub. I've done a little research on that. So yeah, Brent, what do you think? You're a media guy, shaky egg.
It's a great name, and because it does have all that connotations running around in people's head. It's short. It's memorable, and it's got lots of people will be able to build their own connection with that name because they've got whatever DP means to them. And so that is very strong to build a brand when people do that connection themselves.
Let me see who suggested the DP Show so we can announce the winner as well too. DP Show was suggested by, drum roll please,
Jerome Adams, Surgeon General.
Brent. No, yeah, Jerome Adams.
He recommended
Brent Gony, yeah. Brent GonyeA. Brent.
Oh, that sounds like another overseas shipment for you.
Congratulations, Brent. All you gotta do is just email the same email, contest@tasteyourjuice.com, with your address, and I will get out in the mail for you sometime this week. So congratulations, Brent. We're going with a DP Show. I'm done. All I have to do is now find some good graphics, and it's going to be challenging.
Oh, that should be.
Can you imagine me right on Google right now? DP pictures. Boom. Brent, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed having you on. It was just a great discussion. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully we got some serious stuff as well there. I think one thing that we all can take fair, and I'll let you have the last word, is question everything, right?
I would say so, yeah. And, that used to be the modus of operandi of, the other side. But when they've become the establishment now, they're just trying to shut all that down. And so, question everything. And I think that is a good way to sum it up. For those of you guys that are on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe to our channel, which is RegWatch. Just search RegWatch, and that's the best way to find us on YouTube.
Absolutely. And for those of you that are watching, please, Phil, before I go to that, Phil, final thoughts from you? Question everything.
No, I love that. I love question everything because that's exactly where I see that is what I'm doing every single day right now. I'm questioning everything, and I'm wondering if I'm not falling into a trap that I don't want to fall in as I go to my mail with gloves on to take my mail out of the mailbox, bring it inside, let it sit for a day, spray it down. Like, what am I doing? Do I need to do this? I mean, what's going on?
Stop doing it, Bill. Stop. Save yourself. Stop.
I know. Somebody wrote here, and I love what they wrote. Let me pull this up. Constant sanitizing will just make the next virus worse.
Yeah. Did you know that Aspire released a product? I'm not taking it out on Aspire. I'm just saying this is the opportunistic China side. They released a product. It's a little device you carry around to sanitize your drip tip. I mean, look. Look, I mean, that's just ridiculous. I don't want to say it since this is the DP show and it's not the Smoker show. I think it's the most ridiculous thing. Like, you're gonna carry around your mod, you're gonna carry your bottle of liquid, a few batteries, and then you're gonna have another device that's gonna sanitize your drip tip. I mean, come on, this is enough. Enough is enough. By the way, my first suggestion. Thank you guys. By the way, the first suggestion for a logo is to have the butthole scanning toilet seat. Good suggestion. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you like this video, give us a little like and a share. It helps the algorithms go up. And the next time that we will be live with you, it will be called The DP Show. Thanks to my guest, Brent Stafford at Regulator Watch Canada. Please, regulatorwatch.com is the website. And also get out there and contribute to his fundraiser. We need to make sure that he is around. We will see you again next Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern with The Smoker Show. Have a wonderful evening.